Chapter 376. Seeing that big ice cube didn't react, Chu Qingyan hesitated for a moment. Finally, she smiled and picked up her chopsticks. She picked up a noodle and brought it in front of him. She said cheerfully, "Big ice cube, you're not allowed to break it. This means longevity." Looking at the noodle in front of him, he subconsciously opened his mouth, and the warm noodle entered his mouth. When he came back to his senses, he met her sparkling and crafty eyes. "You're not allowed to break it. It has to last for a long, long time." Chu Qingyan immediately shouted when she saw that he didn't move. Xiao laughed. When the noodle was finished, Chu Qingyan put down her sore hands. Sai, although she was now much taller than her peers, standing in front of him, she was still very small. This situation had to be changed. She silently said in her heart. But many years later, when she grew taller, she wanted to cry but had no tears. Why was she taller than the average girl? She surpassed countless men. But fortunately, when she stood in front of Big Ice Cube, she just happened to reach his shoulder. She could lean her head on his shoulder. This height difference was just right. Everyone who was eating the cake was dumbstruck when they saw this scene. This was the first time they saw their master being fed by someone. And so cooperative. Their knowledge was refreshed. "Also, master, can you not smile so gently? Your subordinates can't take it." Xiao seemed to feel his subordinates' fervent gazes. He lowered his head and coughed lightly. "Why do you suddenly want to celebrate this prince's birthday?" Chu Qingyan clasped her hands in front of her. When she heard his question, a bright smile flashed through her eyes. "It's not sudden. It's been planned for a long time." He raised his brows. The person in front of him was smiling slyly like a little fox. He couldn't help but smile as well. "Oh. When I left Sichuan, I knew your birthday. I calculated that I should have arrived in Jiang Kingdom by then, but I didn't expect to be detained in Junlan. I thought that I would celebrate your birthday in Junlan, but I didn't expect to be detained in this sea area." Chu Qingyan exhaled and turned to face the sea with a smile. "Although the world is unpredictable, fortunately, I can still help you celebrate your birthday. The world is vast, the water meets the sky, the night pearl, and the big ice block. Do you like it?" Hearing her words, he couldn't help but shift his gaze to the surface of the sea. The ripples were like the lake in his heart. He didn't answer her directly, but raised his hand to stroke her long hair. At this moment, his state of mind was calm and at ease. Not hearing his answer, Chu Qingyan was not disappointed, because she knew him well. He was not a person who would show his emotions on his face. "Big ice block, if you think that's all for today's birthday, then you're wrong. The best part is yet to come." Chu Qingyan suddenly spoke and clapped her hands lightly. The people who were still gathered immediately dispersed and stood behind the tables and chairs. The deck in the middle was empty. Xiao turned to look at the crowd and saw that there were long tables in front of them. There were all kinds of delicacies on the tables. It was obvious that these things had been prepared. Otherwise, how could there be such ingredients in this vast sea? It was just as she said. They had been planning this for a long time. "Big ice block, there's a program coming up." She pulled him to the seat in the middle and said with a smile. Xiao didn't ask her what the program was, because with her personality, she wouldn't tell him. Once he sat down, the crowd dared to sit down. Chu Qingyan clapped her hands. Jin Exen and Hualing moved a table and chairs to the deck. Then, they saw Cheng Yenluo walk to a chair with a guqin and sit down. Cheng Yenluo put down the guqin and adjusted the strings. Then she raised her head and nodded at Chu Qingyan. When Chu Qingyan saw that everything was ready, she turned to look at Xiao. Her gaze swept over the crowd, and she said with a smile, "How can we let down such a beautiful occasion? Qingyan is not talented, but I'm willing to liven things up with a sword dance." As soon as she finished speaking, not only Xiao, but everyone else revealed a surprised expression. When did this little girl learn how to wield a sword? Xiao watched as she took the long sword from the servant's hand. Her movements were practiced, and it didn't seem like she was a beginner. Although Turin had instructed her for a period of time before, based on her personality, she should have forgotten long ago. He didn't expect to see her wield a sword again today. No, when they were in the princess residence, she also brought a sword to the courtyard to save him. Xiao Su suddenly felt that he might have missed something during this period of time. Just as he was deep in thought, the sound of the guqin rang out and interrupted his thoughts. The person standing upright with the sword in her hand stepped to the beat and waved the sword in her hand. At this moment, Xiao Su noticed that her clothes today were different from usual. She wore a tight-fitting white tunic with a bright red coat draped over it. A black woven belt was fastened around her waist, with tassels hanging down and swaying with her movements. Her long hair was tied up high and pinned with a wooden hairpin. Her figure was slender, and her movements were nimble. Her face exuded confidence and seriousness. Inverted scallion, Kai's dance is good, right? Father Chu came over with a chicken leg in his mouth, looking proud of himself. Xiao Su fixed his gaze on her body. She twisted and turned, rose and fell, flew high in the air, spread her wings, and soared high. Every movement was just right, and combined with the grace of a dance. Her slender wrist softened the fierceness of her sword moves, and the sword in her hand shone like white silk in the dark night. Her sword moves and dance steps were seamlessly integrated. It was obvious that it would take at least half a month for her to reach such a level of beauty. Although his son-in-law didn't answer, the concentration on his face couldn't lie. Father Chu took another bite of his chicken leg and said, "Son-in-law, Kai has been preparing for your birthday for a long time. I can see that she has put a lot of effort into you. You can't let her down in the future." Xiao Su frowned slightly. "I won't. As long as he was around, she would be safe under his wings and live the life she wanted." The sound of the guqin was sometimes slow and sometimes fast. Chu Qingyan's movements also changed according to the rhythm. She was fully focused on every move, and every step was light and steady. Cheng Yanluo looked at the person on the deck and smiled. Although she was still young, she had the potential to bring disaster to the country when she grew up. She was suddenly curious. 5 years later, when the little girl came of age, how magnificent would she be? She couldn't wait to see it. Cheng Yanluo hadn't stopped smiling when she met the gaze of the person opposite her. He seemed to be reminiscing about something. She looked away, but her fingers didn't stop playing the strings of the guqin. However, the smile on her face had disappeared. She remembered how the two of them used to play the guqin together, thinking that one day they would be able to harmonize. Unfortunately, life was unpredictable, and life was unpredictable. The song ended. The dance ended. Chu Qingyan looked up at the person in front of her. She didn't bother to wipe the sweat off her forehead. She put away her sword and bowed. She stood tall and straight, and her voice was playful and cute. "Big Ice Cube, I wish you every day of your life." This person's words were like a stone thrown into the lake of his heart. Chapter 377. Every year this day, every year this day? Xiao Su was in a bit of a daze. It seemed like these 20 years had just started from this moment. But when he thought of this trip, the trembling in his heart disappeared. If the snake's kiss poison could not be cured, then the beginning would be the end. But this was also good. It was better than ending before it even started. After Chu Qingyan's sword dance ended, the atmosphere reached a climax. "Young princess consort, when did you secretly practice swordsmanship behind our backs? How come this subordinate didn't know?" Mu Ling held a wine cup with a relaxed expression as she teased her. "Behind your back, of course it's to not let you know." Chu Qingyan replied confidently. She handed the sword to Jean Exon and clapped her hands as she walked to the table. Hua Ling and Turin smiled on the side without saying a word. Seeing them like this, Kong Ling understood. "I say, did the two of you already know about this?" Hua Ling crossed her arms and leaned against the railing. She held a whip in her hand and tapped it against her palm. She smiled when she heard this. "We are in charge of patrolling. How could we not know when a living person is practicing martial arts right under our noses?" Then again, young princess consort's martial arts were taught by Turin. Everyone revealed an expression of understanding. Young princess consort is naturally intelligent. This subordinate did not give her any pointers and relied on her own efforts. Turin said to his master. Actually, to be honest, he did not spend much time teaching her. He was busy with work, and it was always him demonstrating and young princess consort learning. He did not think young princess consort would persist or have any accomplishments, but seeing her today, it was beyond his expectations. Because young princess consort's sword dance was integrated with the 2 sets of swordsmanship he had taught her before. There were basically no patterns in the moves and they were clean killing moves. But when she linked them together, they became moves that were soft but firm. The killing intent did not decrease and there was more of a woman's gentleness. He had to admit that young princess consort had a talent for martial arts. Turin was used to being realistic and his words were always straightforward. But hearing him affirm her, Chu Qingyan was still a bit surprised, but more than that, she was happy. As for Xiao Su, he felt more gratified. Big Ice Cube, I didn't embarrass you. She gathered her coat and sat down beside him, looking at him expectantly. In fact, no one's affirmation could compare to what she wanted to hear from the person she wanted to hear the most. For so many days, she had endured the cold wind and gritted her teeth to practice martial arts. Other than wanting to prove that she could really do it, she also wanted to tell him that she was not a sparrow. She was also a young eagle, an eagle that could spread its wings and soar high. These past few days, you've been hiding it from this prince because you've been practicing martial arts? Xiao Su looked at her slightly flushed cheeks from practicing the sword and asked in an ambiguous manner. Chu Qingyan nodded, but then shook her head. I always practice martial arts in the morning. When you woke up and I hid it from you, I was preparing the cake and sword dance. You were actually lying when you sparred with Miss Qing? Xiao Su remembered how serious she looked when she was lying. It could be said that he had almost been fooled by her. She rubbed her nose and smiled. If I didn't lie to you, there wouldn't be a surprise. When I touched the zither, you were the one who taught me. At that time, didn't my clothes smell burnt? That was because I didn't control the heat properly and burned the cake. Seeing her stick out her tongue in embarrassment, Xiao Su could imagine her being busy in the kitchen. For his birthday, she worked hard in a place he couldn't see, just to give him an unforgettable birthday. It would be a lie to say that he wasn't moved. Your merits offset your demerits, so this king won't pursue the matter of you lying. Xiao Su looked at her small face. His voice was calm, but there was a soft light in his eyes. Chu Qingyan was stunned. That's not right. According to the script, the big ice cube should be very happy and feel that she did a good job. He should be very moved. But why did it become her merits offsetting her demerits? This scene was clearly not right. But when she thought about it, with the big ice cube's personality, would he be happy? That's impossible. Big Ice Cube, there's still hard work. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but pout. The little fellow's little face fell. Xiao Su curved his lips. It's already offset. Oh, whoa, so petty. But she didn't think about why she did so much. At most, she just wanted to make the big ice cube happy. He had never had a smooth sailing life. He had achieved success and fame, but now he had to hide from place to place. Just thinking about it made her heart ache. When she thought of this, Chu Qingyan smiled again. She reached out to pour him a cup of tea. Big Ice Cube, although you can't drink at this time, drinking tea is not bad. This is authentic Longjing tea. I bought it in Junlan town. I was in a rush that day, otherwise I would have bought more. The tea filled the teacup, and the aroma instantly filled the air. In the air, a faint mist filled the air. Through the fragrant mist, Xiao Su looked at the person who was seriously pouring tea for him with lowered eyes. It seemed that the little fellow had grown up a lot. Along the way, she was constantly growing. He didn't notice it when they were together every day, but when he looked carefully, he could see it. Everyone must not have enjoyed the little princess sword dance. Come, I Hualing will also show everyone a whip dance. At this time, Hualing walked onto the open space with a whip. He was in high spirits. He drank a bit of wine and his face was a bit red, but it made him look even more handsome. As soon as his voice fell, the whip came out. It was like a snake, nimbly changing its shape. Chu Qingyan sighed in surprise. I always thought that Hualing was best at using the sword, but I never thought that he would be so good at using the whip. Xiao Su followed her gaze and looked at the person wantonly dancing in the air. Then he looked at the good men who were sitting, leaning, or clapping their hands. His eyes were a bit complicated. For so many years, They had followed him everywhere and fought without rest. Every day, their strings were stretched taut. Now, at this time, they were living a bit like him. The whip is not good for close combat. Huoling only uses it as a pastime. At this time, Ethereal interjected. He held a wine jug in his hand and shook it before drinking. He was a bit different from the elegant young master she first met. He was more carefree and unrestrained. Actually, Ethereal is not only good at medicine, he's also very good at playing the flute. It's just that I haven't heard him play for many years. At this time, Mu Ling irresponsibly revealed. Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. She immediately turned to ask Ethereal, "Really? Do you want to play a song?" She hadn't forgotten the song Ethereal played with the bamboo leaves that night. Although it was sad, it was very moving. When Ethereal heard this, he subconsciously glanced at Qingyan Luo, who was drinking soup not far away. He was a bit hesitant. Chu Qingyan didn't miss his glance. She rolled her eyes and immediately waved at Ethereal. "Sister Yenlo, would you do me the honor of playing a song with Ethereal's zither and flute?" Chapter 378. As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd fell silent. Then, deafening cheers erupted. "Ethereal, Miss Qing, give us a performance. Give us a performance, give us a performance. 1, 2, quick, quick. 2, 3, quick, quick, quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've been waiting so long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we've been waiting so long. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, how much longer do we have to wait?" Chu Qingyan sang along to the beat, chanting the same slogan they used during their military training. The cavalrymen found it amusing and joined in the chanting. Qingyan Luo had wanted to ignore them, but she hadn't expected such a commotion. Although she was reluctant, she couldn't back down. "All right," she agreed helplessly and stood up with the zither in her arms. Ethereal's heart skipped a beat. He thought she would reject him. After all, he had drawn a clear line between them. Qingyan Luo put down the zither and looked up at him. Her expression was cold, without the kindness in her eyes. She asked, "Which song do you want to play?" Ethereal snapped out of his daze. He felt a stabbing pain in his heart when he saw her treating him like a stranger. He frowned and walked to the empty space. He didn't make a decision immediately, but said, "You pick the tune. I'll follow along." Hearing that, Qingyan Luo snorted coldly in her heart. Did he think that he knew every single one of her songs? Would anyone change over the past 6 years? Only a fool would remain the same. However, she had to consider the occasion. After all, it was Xiao Su's birthday. It wouldn't be appropriate if she messed it up. Otherwise, she really wanted to play "Breaking Up With You." Qingyan Luo nodded. She raised her hand and plucked the strings of the zither. A crisp and beautiful melody flowed out from the strings. Ethereal wasn't surprised. This was the song she played, "Life's Bliss." The jade flute was already at his fingertips. After recognizing her song, Ethereal brought the jade flute close to his lips and began to play. The combination of the zither and flute, one in green, one in white, one in bright, one in elegant, one sitting, one standing, they became a beautiful sight on the vast sea. A perfect match. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but exclaim softly. When these words reached the two people's ears, one was startled and the other was helpless. The sound of the zither and the flute was her most beautiful memory in those 4 years. Now, it had become the most laughable mockery. Let everything go with the wind. It's fine as long as you have a peaceful and happy life. You don't have to force anything else. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but drool as she said, "I feel that women who can play the guqin are all very powerful. If you study hard, it's not impossible." Hearing her muttering to herself, Xiao Su hesitated in his heart, but still spoke up to encourage her. Although it was said that the rod produced a filial son, occasionally he could not be too strict. Encouraging her more would be beneficial to her growth. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she suddenly had the urge to cry. She raised her hand and looked at her fingertips. If she continued to practice, her fingers would be crippled. "My hand can hold the sword. As for the zither and painting, let's forget about it, all right?" Chu Qingyan discussed with him. Xiao Su shook his head and said without any room for discussion, "This prince has already given the zither away, so there's no reason to take it back. You should study hard. It's not a loss to have an extra skill." Hearing this, a few drops of cold sweat appeared on her forehead. Chu Qingyan persisted, "Then what if I take good care of the zither?" "No, you have to make the best use of it." Xiao Su rubbed his chin after saying this. After thinking for a while, he said, "After your reminder, this prince feels that since you're talented and not bad at martial arts, then you should be good in other aspects as well. Why don't you learn the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting?" Cold sweat poured down. This was the rhythm of wanting her life. "Can you give me a discount? What do you think?" "I don't think so." Chu Qingyan answered her own question. She wanted to cry but had no tears. Xiao Su felt that during this period of time, seeing the little rascal's deflated face, his mood was inexplicably good. After the zither and flute were played together, the others were eager to try. Some were playing drunken boxing, while others were fighting. The scene was very lively. Today, she had been busy setting up the entire birthday banquet and controlling the backstage. She had also performed the sword dance, so she had used up too much energy. Now that her stomach was empty, she ate a few mouthfuls of rice. Looking at the braised crabs and spicy sesame prawns on the table, she was about to drool. It was a pity that peeling the shells was too troublesome, so she could only eat until she was full. Just as she was engrossed in eating, a peeled prawn landed in her bowl. That intact prawn meat was sparkling and delicious. She could tell that the person who peeled the shell had nimble fingers. She glared at the prawn, then raised her head to look at the person sitting at the side. She saw him slowly twist the prawn's head, remove the prawn's legs, and with a flip of his fingers, the shell was no longer changed. Another intact prawn meat landed in her bowl. After peeling several prawns in a row, Xiao Su took a cloth from the side and wiped the oil and debris on his fingers. Looking up, he saw that she was still staring at him in a daze. Xiao Su couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "If you don't eat it, it will get cold." Chu Qingyan came back to her senses and immediately picked up the prawn meat and stuffed it into her mouth. At this moment, she was shocked. With the big ice cube's mysophobia, he basically didn't touch prawns or crabs. But in this sea, the most common ingredients were prawns and crabs. The last time she saw him, he basically didn't touch them. When she asked him, he said that it was troublesome. But now, because of her gaze, he personally peeled them for her. She was simply too touched. She bit into the prawn meat and looked at the person peeling the crab meat for her. She felt that there was nothing more delicious in her mouth. After a long time, when he was used to doing these things and she was also used to enjoying it, she curiously asked about the first time he peeled the shell. "Was it because you were moved by me at that time? Admit it honestly." "You're thinking too much. It's just that you were too drooling when you looked at those dishes." This prince couldn't stand it. She pursed her lips. So stubborn. Halfway through the banquet, Chu Yunsheng's father suddenly appeared. Chu Qingyan saw her father standing in the middle of the boat while she was eating. She suddenly had a bad feeling. What was her father doing? Performing a show? More importantly, would he know how to do it? The moment Chu Yunsheng's father went on stage, he immediately erupted in applause. Although the fire spirit, Turin, and the wood spirit, Ethereal, were usually bullied by him, they weren't stingy with their applause at this time. "Kuka, quiet." Chu Yunsheng's father raised his hand in a dignified manner, indicating for everyone to quiet down. Chu Qingyan felt that her father was quite cool like this. Although she was a bit worried that he would make a mistake again, she couldn't help staring at him on stage. "Today, I'll perform a show for you. You definitely haven't seen this show before," Chu Yunsheng's father said with a serious expression. "What show?" "Stop keeping us in suspense," Hua Ling shouted. Chu Yunsheng's father seriously looked at Hua Ling. "Be serious, this is a serious show." Hua Ling immediately raised his hands in surrender. All right, please continue. "The show I'm going to perform is..." Chu Yunsheng's father said this before laughing. "It's magic." Chapter 379. Everyone was stunned by Mr. Chu's words. Magic? What the hell was that? Playing a musical instrument? or practicing swordsmanship. Chu Qingyan was probably the only one who understood what he was saying. She covered her eyes. Oh my God, Dad, don't tell me you're… Then, all right, I'm going to perform a magic trick now. It's called Great Transformation, Mr. Chu said mysteriously. Chu Qingyan sighed. Just as she thought. What's Great Transformation? Mu Ling's curiosity was piqued. Mr. Chu explained, it's making a person disappear. Mr. Chu raised his hand. I'm going to start now. Am I standing here perfectly fine? I'm going to disappear in a while. But before I start, you have to close your eyes and keep silent for 10 seconds. Then open your eyes again. You can't see me when you open your eyes. Then, close your eyes for another 10 seconds and I'll appear. Everyone was excited to watch the show, but after hearing Mr. Chu's explanation, they all felt uncomfortable. Are you sure this isn't hide and seek but a magic trick? However, no one said anything because Chu Machen's father had already begun to urge everyone. Chu Qingyan watched as everyone closed their eyes. Then, her father flew around like a fly and hid under a small table covered with a tablecloth. Then, everyone cooperated and opened their eyes. Ah, he's gone. How magical! Quick, quick, quick. Close your eyes and see if old Master Chu will appear. Chu Qingyan face-bombed. These people were too cooperative with her father's nonsense. She was speechless. Well, I'm out. Isn't it awesome? Mr. Chu stood proudly in front of everyone. As soon as he finished speaking, thunderous applause rang out. Your father is very good. Xiao Su picked up his teacup and looked at the people on the stage through the smoke. Chu Qingyan thought that Big Ice Cube would complain that her father was messing around. She didn't expect to hear such an evaluation from him. Warmth filled her heart. She turned to look at her father on the stage. His proud look was really cute. In her eyes, no matter what her father became, he would always be her closest family. There was nothing in this world that was stronger than blood ties. Kai, come, let's put on another show. Chu Qingyan's father was in high spirits and immediately pulled his daughter into the act. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised when her name was called. She stood up blankly and asked, Dad, what are you going to perform? Sing. Mr. Chu said matter-of-factly. Chu Qingyan slapped her forehead. Daddy was really too much tonight. However, she didn't want to spoil her father's mood. Besides, the main purpose of tonight was to be lively and happy. If she could make everyone laugh after losing face, it would be worth it. Little girl, hurry up, don't dilly-dally. Cheng Yenluo hadn't forgotten about her suggestion just now. It reminded her of her past and she couldn't help but kick up a fuss. Go ahead. Xiao Su didn't stop her. Instead, he pushed her out. He remembered that the little girl seemed to be quite good at singing. Chu Qingyan turned around and glared at him. She looked around and saw that everyone was looking at her expectantly. She had no choice but to resign herself to fate and walk towards her father. When she reached her father, Chu Qingyan looked up and asked, Dad, what song do you want to sing? When she was in Mao Village, she was afraid that her father would run around and cause trouble for her mother. She had taught him many songs, but they were all nursery rhymes. Her father wouldn't want to sing nursery rhymes, right? She was a little embarrassed to sing nursery rhymes in front of so many people at her age. How about Ode to Joy? Mr. Chu whispered to her. Chu Qingyan felt that this was the most appropriate song among all the ones she had taught him. It was worth it to teach him so much. She nodded to show that she had no problem with it. Chu Qingyan coughed lightly. She felt pressured when she saw so many pairs of eyes staring at her. After clearing her throat, Chu Qingyan began to sing. Goddess of joy, holy and beautiful. Brilliant light shines on the earth. Her light voice was like a dragonfly spreading its wings and flying with the wind. It made people see the vitality of spring and summer in this cold winter. Mr. Chu continued to sing. Our hearts are full of passion, coming to your holy temple. Your strength can make people erase all traces. Mr. Chu's voice was slightly lower, but the man's voice was full of power. It filled people with enthusiasm. When they reached this point, the two of them looked at each other and sang together. Under your radiance, people unite as brothers. Your strength can make people erase all traces. Under your radiance, people unite as brothers. The combination of soft and hard forces made people feel endless strength and firm belief. It was as if they were persistent in their hardships and believed that the light would come sooner or later. At this point, the song should have ended. However, at some point, Qingyanluo's zither and ethereal flute sounded. They were playing the song Ode to Joy. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Someone could really compose a song after listening to it once. Therefore, Chu Qingyan and Mr. Chu didn't stop. Instead, they continued to sing. Xiao Su held his teacup and looked at the stage. He didn't touch the tea in his cup for a long time. It was as if his whole body was frozen. This song was cheerful and light. With the accompaniment of the zither and flute, it showed the glory of the song itself. This was an inspirational song that made people not forget their thoughts. In their era, proper women and men would not sing in public. That was generally assumed to be reserved for the lowly group of people who were known as singers. But in the eyes of Xiao Lai-chi, in the eyes of Xiao Su, these rules were nothing to them. They were people who had been through a lot on the battlefield. What kind of things had they not experienced? They had seen a lot and were more open-minded than those who stuck to the rules. The rules of the world were meant to be broken. Therefore, when the young princess consort and old master Chu sang this song, they resonated in their hearts. After so many years of wandering between life and death, they had almost died many times. But if it weren't for the trust in their masters and the persistence of their beliefs, they wouldn't have come to this point. The same was true for their deceased comrades. After singing and playing twice, they stopped. The crowd clapped their hands, still wanting more. When Cheng Yanluo put away her zither, she glared at the person who was putting away his jade flute. Why did he join in the accompaniment when she asked for it? Ethereal rubbed his nose. He didn't expect Xiaoyan to join in the accompaniment. It could be said that the two of them subconsciously played their instruments at the same time. Dan Yang, did your husband sing well? Mr. Chu ran to his wife as soon as he got off the stage. Chu Qingyan smiled. She could vaguely hear her mother saying, "Very good, very good." She couldn't help but walk to Big Ice Cube. She tilted her head and asked, "Big Ice Cube, how was my singing?" It was just a casual question, but her eyes met his serious and bright eyes. Her pupils shrank slightly. She was looking forward to what he would say. Chapter 380. Chu Qingyan held her breath, waiting for him to speak. Even though she knew that big ice block was used to teasing her, she didn't know if he would tease her again this time. But she was still looking forward to it. "You sang well." His black eyes had traces of a smile, as if he had seen through her thoughts. But this time, he didn't ignore her expectations. "You're good at both writing and martial arts. You've improved a lot." He couldn't always be a stick, sometimes he had to give her some candy. And this time, she really made him look at her in a new light. "Really?" Chu Qingyan was surprised at first, but then she was overjoyed. "It's fake." Xiao Su teased. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at him. She knew that he was teasing her, but she was really happy tonight because she rarely received such praise from Big Ice Block. Today is a day worth celebrating. "Xining, I want a drink, bring me a wine glass." Chu Qingyan was so happy that she forgot her status and waved her hand at Xining. Xining heard this and felt that something was wrong. She immediately looked at His Royal Highness and saw His Highness' deep eyes sweep over her. Xining couldn't help but shiver. She immediately lowered her head and ate her food. After a long time, she didn't see Xining bring a cup. Chu Qingyan turned her head and saw that she looked like she didn't understand anything. She was busy eating and didn't look at her eyes. Chu Qingyan thought for a bit and then looked suspiciously at the person next to her. "You can't drink yet," Xiao Su said in a serious tone. "If you're thirsty, drink tea." How could she become an alcoholic at such a young age? Besides, drinking was bad for her body and mind. She wasn't thirsty, okay? She just wanted to drink to liven things up. Seeing that Xining immediately brought a cup of tea after Big Ice Block spoke, he couldn't help glaring at Xining. This little girl, did she not recognize who her master was? However, since Big Ice Cube had already said so, she couldn't go against him. She could only sip her tea pitifully. However, a long time later, Chu Qingyan was extremely glad that she didn't have the chance to touch alcohol because of the ice cube. Otherwise, she would have regretted it to death. It turned out that once she finished drinking, there was a commotion on the deck. After drinking, the men became more relaxed. Moreover, men who had been through life and death situations on the battlefield did not bother about trifles. They began to sing and laugh. And at this time, Xiao Su wouldn't restrain his subordinates. After so many days, it was time for them to relax. Moreover, his subordinates all knew their limits. They knew how to control themselves, so he didn't need to worry about them. The show came to an end, but the laughter didn't stop. After eating and drinking to her heart's content, Chu Qingyan remembered that she still had something important to do. Just as she was about to take out that thing from her sleeve, someone beat her to it. Son-in-law, son-in-law, Daddy has prepared a present for you. In a flash, her father appeared. Chu Qingyan withdrew her hand, amused. She had always known that her father was worried about preparing a present for Big Ice Cube. However, when she wanted to ask him later, he always had a mysterious look on his face. He had done a very good job of keeping it a secret. Now, she was also curious about what her father had prepared for her birthday. Xiao Su was also a little surprised by Chu Qingyan's father's sudden appearance, not to mention the birthday present he mentioned. Chu Qingyan saw Chu Qingyan's father take out the thing he was carrying behind his back with a happy look on his face. Dang, 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 birthday present. A snow-white piece of jade lay in Chu Qingyan's father's palm. At this time, under the light, it actually emitted a faint green light. Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. She had thought that her father would bring flowers, grass, and stones because that was usually what her father did. However, when she saw that piece of white jade, Chu Qingyan's first thought was, "Daddy, where did you get this jade from?" Why hadn't she seen it before? Chu Qingyan's father looked at his daughter with an aggrieved expression. Kai, this is our Chu family's heirloom. Daddy didn't just randomly pick it up." "Ah, Daddy, that's not what I meant." Chu Qingyan hurriedly waved her hands. She didn't suspect her father. At this time, Chu Qingyan's mother walked over. She smiled lovingly at Xiao Su and her daughter and said, "This jade pendant was given to Yuan Lang by an eminent monk before he went to war 10 years ago. It was said that it could bless him with safety. It was all thanks to this jade pendant that the entire army was wiped out in that battle. However, your father managed to survive after falling off a cliff. Mother thought that it might be because of this jade pendant." At this point, Chu Qingyan's mother raised her head to look at Xiao Su. After spending so much time together, she had dispelled the rumors about him being full of evil. Now, she looked at him with the gaze of an elder looking at a junior and said gently, "Your Highness, now that we are giving this jade pendant to you, we hope that you will be able to survive this disaster safely. I believe that the heavens have eyes and won't let a good person suffer too many twists and turns. A woman's coming-of-age ceremony and a man's coming-of-age ceremony is an extremely solemn event. The gift is light, so I hope that your Highness won't mind." After Chu Qingyan's mother finished speaking, Chu Qingyan's father nodded repeatedly. "Bless you." Xiao Su looked at the two people in front of him. A warm current surged in his heart and instantly flowed through his entire body. He stretched out his hands with a solemn expression. "I don't dare to refuse an elder's gift." Xiao Su is not talented and has troubled the two of you. Seeing Xiao Su take the jade pendant so seriously and carefully, Chu Qingyan's mother glanced at her daughter and suddenly revealed a gratified smile. "Your Highness, in the future, my Kai will be in your care." Chu Qingyan was originally touched by this scene, but when her mother suddenly said this, she did not know how to react. Then she heard Big Ice Cube's reply. "Xiao Su will treat her well," Xiao Su replied seriously. Chu Qingyan's mother nodded and left with her husband, leaving the two of them some space. When Chu Qingyan's father came forward to give the birthday gift, Hua Ling and the others had already noticed. Then, when they heard Chu Qingyan's mother's words, they all fell silent. Chu Qingyan's father was originally a proud son of the heavens. His father's birthday should be celebrated by the royal family with the highest standards. He should receive the worship of the civil and military officials and the blessings of the emperor. But now, on this vast sea, there was no family, no title, no celebration. There was only hiding, the cold wind, and the cold moon. However, they also felt a trace of joy. At least at this time, their master had the little princess by his side and they were accompanying him. In the past 20 years, their master had never felt the care of family. Today, at least he received the most sincere blessings. The little princess's parents would also be their master's parents in the future. At this moment, they received the warmest blessings from family. Turin, what should I do? I'm moved. Hua Ling rubbed the non-existent tears at the corner of his eyes, but his eyes were really red. Yeah, me too. The wood spirit smiled. At this time, we should be happy for our master. Turin listened to his companion's words and suppressed the warmth in his chest as he smiled. At least this birthday, their master would no longer be alone. Chapter 381. Xiao Su looked at the jade pendant in his hand. In his position, he had seen too many rare treasures. This jade pendant could not be considered precious, and its quality was also very ordinary. But when he held it in his hand, it felt warm. He felt that he had never seen a piece of jade that suited him more than this. Chu Qingyan watched as Big Ice Cube slowly closed his fingers and held the jade pendant tightly in his hand. She could not help but smile. It looked like Big Ice Cube really liked the jade pendant that his parents gave him. Suddenly, he turned around and handed the jade pendant in his hand to her. Chu Qingyan was a bit stunned. What was Big Ice Cube doing? Tie a knot, otherwise it won't be easy to wear. He put the jade pendant in her hand and said unhurriedly. Chu Qingyan finally understood his intentions. Big Ice Cube wanted to wear it on his body, but he did not have a knot. She thought that he did not like it. All right. She nodded. But after she agreed, she realized that she did not know how to tie a knot at all. But it was fine. Xining should know how to do it. She could just have her teach her when the time came. Seeing her put away the jade pendant, Xiao Su spoke again. What did you want to say to this prince just now? He remembered that she seemed to have something to say to him just now. After his reminder, Chu Qingyan finally remembered this matter. She said with a smile, Big Ice Cube, I also prepared a gift for you. Is that so? Xiao Su smiled faintly, as a trace of anticipation flashed in his deep eyes. He did not know what kind of surprise she would give him. Wait, I'll get it for you. Chu Qingyan lowered her head and was about to take out a small box from her sleeve. But right at this moment, fireworks were lit and rushed into the night sky from the four corners of the ship. Bang, 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 the fireworks bloomed in the sky one after another. The brilliant colors bloomed like flowers, making people unable to look away. It was as bright as day in an instant. It was magnificent in an instant. Chu Qingyan took out the small box and opened it. Big Ice Cube, this is the birthday gift I made for you. Xiao Su's gaze did not land on the box, but on her in front of him. Behind her was a brilliant display of fireworks, and she was like a little fairy walking out from the light. Her eyebrows were curved, and the corners of her eyes contained the entire starry sky, instantly overflowing with light. Ever since then, this scene had been imprinted in his memory, and it would never fade away. What? His thoughts drifted as he subconsciously asked. She took out the item from the box. It was a small booklet about the size of a palm. She smiled and handed the booklet to him. Take a look. Hurry up. Hearing her urging, Xiao Su took the booklet and saw two charmingly naive little people on the cover. One was standing in the wind with his hands behind his back, looking a little stern. The other was lying on the ground and seemed to be rolling around. The style of the painting was very exaggerated, unlike their ink and wash paintings. But for some reason, he had a strange feeling that the one standing was him, and the one rolling on the ground was very much like the little guy. At least, the way they were making a scene was very similar to the little guy. Under the little fellow's signal, he opened the first page. It was the daily life of the two little people. When he flipped it open again, it was also their daily life. Suddenly, his fingers paused. All the conversations and scenes inside seemed to be vivid in his mind. Seeing that Big Ice Cube had already discovered her, Chu Qingyan giggled and said, This is a comic. I have drawn some of the interesting things in our lives using a humorous style. If you are bored, you can flip it open and take a look. She had accidentally joined a comic club in university and learned some basic drawing skills. She thought that it was just for fun, but she did not expect that it would come in handy here. By the way, if you close the booklet and flip it quickly, there will be a surprise. Although Xiao Su wasn't very interested in these kinds of small things, he still became interested when he heard her say that. He casually flipped through them, and the paintings that were still fixed suddenly came to life. The little person who looked exactly like her in the footer came alive, as if she was walking slowly with a plate of peaches, and there were small words jumping next to it. Big Ice Cube, happy 20th birthday. Every birthday in the future, you must be very happy. When he turned to the last page, the picture also disappeared. How is it? Very good, right? This can also be called an animation. Chu Qingyan proudly showed off, immersed in her own joy, and did not notice the shocked eyes of the person beside her. I like it very much. As soon as the words came out, fireworks bloomed and drowned in an instant. What did you say? Chu Qingyan did not hear clearly, and asked with her head tilted. Xiao Su slanted his lips. I won't say it twice. Stingy. Chu Qingyan grumbled and then smiled again. Xiao Su looked at her delicate face and could not help but smile with her. Big Ice Cube, if you are unhappy in the future, you can take it out and look at it. Even if it doesn't look good, you are not allowed to dislike it. I stayed up a few nights to rush it out. In order to cherish the fruits of my labor, you are not allowed to spoil it or lose it. Hearing her solemn declaration, Xiao Su reached out and patted her head in amusement. What if I don't do it? Then I won't give you comics in the future. Chu Qingyan snorted. This punishment is a little severe. Xiao Su teased her. At this moment, she pulled on his sleeve and smiled pleasingly. Big Ice Cube, keep this comic well. In the future, I will give you a small booklet for your birthday every year. This is called a cereal, and I will give it to you until you are old. I hope that you can smile more in the future, and smile 10 years younger. That way, I can give it to you many times, and then I can give you a lot of happiness. When such words came out of her mouth, Xiao Su felt his heart soften. At this age, he should be the one to protect her, but now she was the one who kept circling around him, afraid that he would accidentally leave her. He smiled, lowered his head, and promised. Receiving his response, Chu Qingyan could not help but smile, and then pulled him to the railing to enjoy the fireworks. I bought a lot of fireworks, and then let the wood spirit improve them. They can be put on for an entire night. Chu Qingyan welcomed the sea breeze happily. Xiao Su raised his head to look at the boundless sea. The world was vast, and his heart was peaceful. There was no killing, no scheming, no scheming. This kind of day was very precious. Big Ice Cube, you will be able to see Jiangguo's good friend tomorrow. I wonder what he looks like, and if he is easy to get along with. Chu Qingyan suddenly spoke up. You don't have to worry about that. You can ignore him. Xiao Su said indifferently. Chu Qingyan was stunned. For better or worse, he is your good friend. How can you treat him like this? However, seeing that his expression was normal, Chu Qingyan did not think too much of it. She leaned on his arm and enjoyed the fireworks in the sky. The two of them stood quietly for a long time. If one looked at them from behind, they would think that they were snuggling together. However, it was indeed Chu Qingyan leaning on him. Do you want to see this prince's original appearance? Xiao Su lowered his head, wanting to ask her, but he saw that she had fallen asleep while leaning on him. He smiled and his gaze softened. Forget it, the future is long. Chapter 382. When Hualing and the others saw the two leaning against the railing, a gratified expression appeared in their eyes. We won't go home until we're drunk tonight. Hualing raised his wine cup, planning on drinking to his heart's content. Unfortunately, as soon as he raised his cup, it was stopped by Mu Ling. We'll be in Jiang country tomorrow, so don't worry. Hualing laughed. Don't we still have Turin? It's not a problem. Turin looked at him. If you're drunk, I don't mind throwing you down to feed the fish. You really are serious. I'm just saying. Hualing rubbed his head and sighed. Everyone couldn't help laughing. There is one person who is already dead drunk. Mu Ling looked at the person on the side. Everyone followed his gaze and saw Ethereal drinking wine with his head raised. His eyes were blurred and it looked like he was already quite drunk. Since ancient times, emotions have left behind regrets. This regret will never end. Hua Ling was in the mood to write poetry as he shook his head in regret. Turin slapped him down. You talk too much. Turin, I'm still a Night Lord. Leave me some face. Everyone laughed heartily. Drunk today, they didn't know tomorrow's matters. It was better to enjoy today's freedom and comfort. It was deep into the night and the banquet slowly dispersed. Everyone cleaned up the messy cups and plates and took the tables and chairs away. Xiao Su stood there for a while and saw that the person beside him was still sleeping peacefully. He smiled. She could even fall asleep standing up. It seemed like she was really tired out this time. Without waking her up, Xiao Su took off his cloak and placed it over her shoulders. Then he lifted her up by the waist and walked towards her room. It was too late. If he didn't let her go back to her room, the sea breeze would be too cold and she would have a headache tomorrow. Big Ice Cube, happy birthday. He placed her on the bed and heard her mutter. Xiao Su revealed a faint smile and gently rubbed her head. I'm very happy tonight. Thank you, little fellow. He didn't like to show his emotions because he knew that a person's emotions could easily affect his own judgment and could easily be used against him. He was already used to watching everything that happened around him coldly. However, it was also because he met the little fellow that he experienced the warmth and coldness of the world, the joy of the 7 emotions. Have a good sleep. He smiled gently and stood up. If Chu Qingyan saw him now, she would probably think that she was hallucinating. She was usually so cold, but when she smiled, she looked so gentle. Unfortunately, she was already asleep and couldn't see anything. Xiao Su left the room and quietly closed the door. Perhaps he should also make plans for the little fellow. He strode away calmly. The ship's armor, which was bustling just now, was now somewhat deserted. Hua Ling and the others had already left. Those who were standing guard, and those who were resting. Turin walked up to Ethereal, who was already drunk, and sighed softly. Why did you make yourself look so miserable? After he finished speaking, he was about to pull her up when he saw a dark shadow creeping up to his feet. He couldn't help but raise his head. It was Cheng Yenluo. Miss Cheng. Turin withdrew his hand and stood to the side. Turin, do you need my help? Cheng Yenluo glanced at the person leaning against the deck. Her eyes were deep, and it was impossible to tell what she was thinking. Turin smiled coldly. Miss Cheng, do you think this is fun? What? Cheng Yenluo narrowed her eyes and looked at him. She felt that he didn't mean well. If you really want to stay away from him, why did you come over at this time? If you still want to be on good terms with him, then say it clearly. Why do you have to be so ambiguous? Turin didn't like to hide his words, so he threw it at her directly. This is between me and him. You don't have the right to comment. As if someone had stepped on her tail, Cheng Yenluo was a little annoyed. Although she admitted that Turin was right about some things and she wanted to stay away from him, she couldn't help but be attracted to him. She couldn't help but pay attention to his words and actions. When she saw him dead drunk, she couldn't help but walk over. But when she opened her mouth, she realized what she was doing. The saddest thing in the world wasn't that he didn't know that you liked him, but that he couldn't help but approach you even though you knew it was impossible. Tu Ling looked at her with a faint smile. Yes, this is between the two of you. But even if the two of you are at loggerheads, outsiders like us don't feel good either. At least, the little princess consort has been trying to matchmake the two of you. Unfortunately, the two of you are always on and off, making it hard for us to see through you. Anyone with a discerning eye knows that Kong Ling cares about you, but you keep pushing him away. Now, outsiders like us can't stand it anymore. Can't you come out and say a few words? Cheng Yenluo was stunned. She wanted to say that it wasn't what they saw, but she didn't know how to refute him. Turin's tone was sharp. You've always only cared about your own feelings. Do you know what happened to him in the past 6 years? What happened in the past 6 years? As soon as the words left her mouth, Cheng Yenluo shut her mouth because she saw the mockery in Turin's eyes. Didn't they agree to draw a line between them? Why did she ask so stupidly? Didn't she know that the more she knew, the more she couldn't let go? She lowered her eyes and turned around. What happened in the past 6 years has nothing to do with me. Turin couldn't help but sneer. All right, since it has nothing to do with you, then let him die drunk here. Don't bother about him. In the future, if you want to know about those years, don't ask me. After saying that, Turin turned around and left without hesitation. Cheng Yanluo didn't expect that Turin would really leave her alone and no longer bother about her. She wanted to call out to him, but she couldn't. In the end, she turned her eyes to the unconscious person and smiled bitterly. Why can't I let go of you? You said you'd give up. She squatted down and looked at the person who was half sitting. In terms of looks, you're not bad. In terms of character, you're terrible. You don't keep your word. In terms of temperament, you're gentle on the surface, but you're as stubborn as a bull on the inside. You have a lot of shortcomings. Why do I always forgive and tolerate you again and again? What's so good about you? Do you deserve my treatment? Murongju, people say that the person who falls in love first will always be more worried about personal gains and losses. Cheng Yanluo rambled on for a long time. Then she sat down and looked up at the night sky. The moment she looked up, she didn't see the person beside her. She slowly opened her eyes, which were full of complicated emotions. I've been tossing and turning for so many nights without any news from you. Do you know that I'm really scared? Murongju, if we're destined to be separated, then let's part on good terms. I don't want to experience this kind of fear again. Initially, when he heard her confession, he felt a little happy. However, the last sentence sent him to the bottom of the valley. Part on good terms. Chapter 383. It was easy to say, but it was difficult to do. Would they forget each other after helping each other in times of need? Ethereal slowly closed his eyes, his face filled with pain. Cheng Yanluo retracted her gaze and turned to look at the person beside her. It was already very late. She couldn't let him sleep like this. The sea breeze was strong, and he had just recovered. He couldn't catch another cold, or else it would be even more difficult for him to recover. Thinking of this, she stood up and wanted to seek help from the patrolling Xiao cavalry. Unfortunately, when they saw her look, they immediately looked away and pretended not to have seen anything. Cheng Yanluo cursed silently. Could it be that these people had been instructed by the Earth Spirit to ignore him? Cheng Yanluo couldn't help but twitch her mouth. Forget it. Even if she had decided to distance herself from him, she couldn't leave him in the lurch. Thus, she resigned herself to fate and reached out to put one of his arms on her shoulders. Then she used all her strength to pull him up. After he steadied himself, she slowly moved toward his room. Cheng Yanluo, who was focused on walking, didn't notice that the person leaning on her opened his eyes again. Looking at the fine beads of sweat on her forehead as she led him forward without any distractions, Kongling's heart became even more complicated. He should have woken up and left by himself, but why couldn't he bear to? It took a Herculean effort for Cheng Yanluo to send him back to his room. She put him on the bed and covered him with a blanket. Cheng Yanluo wanted to leave, but for some reason she couldn't move her feet. She looked up at the person in front of her. His handsome face was still the same. 6 years hadn't left a mark on him. Instead, it made him even more handsome. He was already the dream boy of her junior sisters in the sect. Now, it was needless to say. 6 years could change a lot. Many things could be changed. She was slightly dazed. It was as if she had seen the two of them walking through the night on a narrow path in early summer. Even if they didn't speak, she felt that their eyes were full of words. But now, she felt that she couldn't stay any longer. This room was slowly filling with his scent. If she stayed any longer, she was afraid that her imagination would run wild again. Cheng Yanluo immediately turned around and was about to leave. However, a pair of hands grabbed her wrist. She froze. Yen, don't go. His drunken voice was a little hoarse and a little gloomy, but his simple words made it impossible for her to shake off his hand. Back then, when I told you not to leave, why did you leave? She turned her back to him and asked the question that had been in her heart for 6 years. I was on a mission. If it weren't for my master, Murongju wouldn't exist and I wouldn't have met you. I have to take care of my master's well-being. It was an emergency at that time and I didn't have time to explain. Xiao Yan, it's my fault. A slow voice sounded behind her. No, you're not wrong. Cheng Yanluo closed her eyes. What's wrong is that I like him so much that I can't even tolerate a grain of sand. After saying that, she ruthlessly pulled her wrist back from his hand. She didn't stay any longer and quickly left. Perhaps he was drunk, which was why he suddenly said those words. Maybe he's not drunk. But whether he was drunk or not was no longer important, was it? 6 years ago, you could give me up once for the sake of your responsibility and morality. 6 years later, you can give me up again. Why do I have to guard this dangerous relationship and wait foolishly for you to abandon me again? A girl's heart was too small, so small that it could only let one person go. But a girl was also very fragile. After being hurt once, she would choose not to believe it again. Seeing the figure disappear at the door, the hand that was suspended in midair weakly retracted. She had clearly told herself not to touch that impossible friendship again, but why couldn't she help it? Ethereal threw herself hard onto the bed. It would be great if she was drunk. Once she was drunk, she wouldn't know or see anything. Wouldn't that be great? It would be a mess if she couldn't cut it off. It was the sorrow of separation. In the dead of the night, loneliness would be entrenched in her heart. It was so clear that there was no way to hide. The night passed and a new day came. Chu Qingyan, who was lying on the bed, stared at the tassels on the bedside table with her eyes wide open. She was a little confused. The last memory she had of last night was watching the fireworks bloom in the night sky one by one. But why did she wake up on the bed? She tried hard to recall what had happened last night, but other than the gorgeous fireworks, there was nothing else. Then how did she return to her room? At this time, Xining walked in. When she saw that her master had woken up, she cheerfully went forward and hooked up the bed curtains. Master, they were all saying that you did a good job at the birthday banquet yesterday. It was lively and rich. I didn't expect you to be able to hold such a wonderful banquet at sea. This servant really admires you. Chu Qingyan saw that her face was about to blossom with a smile and couldn't help but laugh. I remember that you also performed very well last night. Those lanterns, ribbons, kitchen reminders, weren't they all made by you alone? Our family's Xining is becoming more and more mature, more and more like a head maidservant. Master, you're making fun of this servant again. Xining glared at her, but she quickly raised a smile. Master, did you sleep well last night? Very well, I slept all the way until dawn and didn't have any dreams. Chu Qingyan stretched and said energetically. That's good. Last night, you fell asleep standing and scared the servant. Fortunately, His Highness sent you back to your room. Xining said with a smile. It was only then that Chu Qingyan realized that Big Ice Cube was the one who had sent her back. She had thought that she was sleepwalking. Xining recalled last night and added, Master, this servant feels that His Highness is becoming more and more attentive to you, and is also becoming more and more gentle. You didn't see the way His Highness looked at you last night. It was so gentle that water could be rubbed out. Chu Qingyan raised her hand and pinched the little girl's face. Your pink little face, let me see if water can be rubbed out. Master, you're bullying me again. Xining covered her cheeks and ran far away. Chu Qingyan was laughing uncontrollably. Regarding Xining's words, she felt that Xining was exaggerating. It was good enough that the Big Ice Cube didn't treat her coldly, but he was so gentle that water could drip out? Don't be too funny, okay? After washing up, Chu Qingyan walked out of the room and saw the dock not far away. She cheered in her heart. Was that the legendary border of Jiang country? If it was, then they had arrived at Jiang country. She walked towards the Big Ice Cube's room, wanting to share this good news with him. But after taking a few steps, she saw a familiar figure on the deck and immediately dashed over. Are we reaching Jiang country? She asked as she ran. He saw the little fellow's energetic appearance and couldn't help but curve his lips. That's great. She smiled happily. Then will we be able to see your old friend? She was very curious about the Big Ice Cube's mysterious old friend. He should have already arrived at the dock. Xiao Su looked at the dock in the distance, his voice gentle. Chapter 384. Chu Qingyan looked at the harbor. Although it was only a small the wood spirit said that it would arrive after lunch at the latest. The sea breeze blew. The closer it was to the Jiang kingdom, the lower the temperature and colder the wind. Chu Qingyan originally wanted to stand outside and wait for the ship to arrive, but she didn't persist for long before retreating back to her room. She stomped her feet in Xiao Su's room to remove the frost on her body. As for the person who was flipping through the book, seeing her childish behavior, he only smiled slightly and focused on the book again. When her body warmed up, Chu Qingyan turned to look at the person at the table. His features were ordinary, but when he casually leaned on the chair, it was hard to look away. Some people said that a serious woman was the most beautiful, and a serious man was the most charming. She felt that it was true. At least, the person in front of her right now was the most charming man she had ever seen. In order to not expose his identity, the big ice cube hadn't worn a mask for a long time. In the past, she felt that with the mask, the two of them were separated by a layer of gauze. She couldn't guess what he was thinking. Although he changed his appearance, with the big ice cube's dull personality, she still couldn't guess much, but it was better than that cold mask. She strolled over and leaned on the table to ask, "I heard that wearing a mask for a long time is not good for the skin. Do you feel uncomfortable?" As soon as she finished speaking, she heard a voice coming from outside the door. "Don't worry, little princess. This subordinate developed this kind of human skin mask. It has good breathability and won't hurt the skin. It won't be a problem even if you wear it for a year or so." Chu Qingyan turned to look at the indifferent ethereal and raised her eyebrows slightly. She had heard about what happened last night from that little girl Xining. After a night of drinking, his complexion really was much worse. She knew that she didn't have the right to interfere in other people's affairs, so she said with a smile, "I'm not worried about Ethereal's medical skills. Are you here to check on His Highness today?" Ethereal nodded. "There's no need to worry about Xishuan and Junlan in the climate of the Jiang kingdom. Master's body won't be able to take it." As she spoke, Ethereal walked towards her master and placed a small pillow on the table so that her master could place her hand on it to feel her pulse. After checking his pulse, Ethereal's brows relaxed. He lowered his head and said to his master, "Your pulse is calm, and the poison is still under control. However, when you arrive in the Jiang kingdom, you must pay attention to keeping warm. After all, you can't use your true qi, so your body will be weaker than usual." Xiao Su nodded. "This prince understands." The two of them chatted for a while longer before Ethereal left. After listening to their conversation, Chu Qingyan looked at him thoughtfully and then walked to his closet. His daily life was usually taken care of by the 7 maidservants, including his clothes. However, Cheng Yi had been banished because of her evil intentions, and Qing Yi and Lve were not brought along. Perhaps it was because he was used to rushing to the battlefield, but he did not have any women by his side, so he did not find it inconvenient. However, he did lack people to take care of his clothes. Thus, she began to worry about his basic necessities. Hua Ling had once lamented that with her around, his master could even dispense with the 7 maidservants. She only thought that he was joking. Just based on Hong Yi's ability, she was unable to reach her level. That was an ability that had been honed over the years, so how could it compare to her, a dabbler? She took care of his clothes, then took out a cloak that was thicker than usual and placed it beside his hand. "Big Ice Cube, the Jiang kingdom is too cold. When you get off the boat today, put on this cloak to ward off the cold." Chu Qingyan folded his clothes and casually said to him. Xiao Su moved his gaze away from the book and landed on her. His gaze was deep as he responded, "An." It was hard to imagine that the two of them who had been at loggerheads with each other in the Prince's Fu a few months ago were now speaking so intimately. He couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. He didn't know if it was because this journey was bumpy, or if it was a road of no return, but he had been feeling quite emotional recently. "Big Ice Cube, you read books every day. Don't you feel tired?" Chu Qingyan saw that if he wasn't reading documents in the past, he would be reading books or practicing martial arts. Now that he was far away from the royal court, his number of documents had decreased quite a bit. His body didn't allow it, so he didn't practice martial arts. He only read books all day without any other entertainment. She couldn't help but feel that he was too boring. "You're never too old to learn," he lightly said, and refuted her until she was speechless. Chu Qingyan curled her lips. She looked down and saw the name of the book, 6 Secret Techniques. This name was so familiar. She seemed to have heard it somewhere before. Seeing her furrow her brows, Xiao Su could guess what she was thinking. 6 Secret Techniques, the ancestor of the art of war. The 6 secret techniques are divided into Wen Tao, Wu Tao, Long Tao, Tiger Tao, Leopard Tao, Quan Tao, and Wen Tao is mainly. Chu Qingyan felt that she was starting to feel dizzy when she heard it. Xiao Su saw that she was spacing out. He picked up the book and patted her head. "If you don't work hard when you're young, you'll be sad when you're old." "I won't be sad. You're here." Chu Qingyan covered her head and deliberately talked back. "Relying on the heavens, the earth, and your parents is better than relying on yourself." Xiao Su shook his head and closed the book in his hands. Chu Qingyan felt that she was being looked down on. She wasn't that bad, okay? But Big Ice Cube was right. Relying on herself was the best guarantee. She thought that she would practice the Heaven and Earth sword a few more times today to familiarize herself with it. Then she would discuss it with Turin. There were a few moves that she felt that the posture was wrong. She didn't know if she remembered the moves wrongly. "Why do you suddenly want to practice martial arts?" Xiao Su lightly said. Chu Qingyan smiled when she heard that. She rested her chin on her hands and smiled like a flower. "Big Ice Cube, didn't you say that relying on the heavens, the earth, and your parents is better than relying on yourself?" "I'm relying on myself." Xiao Su didn't believe that she could apply what she had learned on the spot. "Although your moves are neat, they're not very lethal. You've only reached 50% of the strength of the Heaven and Earth sword and the Blazing Flame sword. But you're still young, so it's normal that you don't have enough strength." Xiao Su commented. Regardless of whether she was doing it for fun or on a whim, he was using his experience to point out her shortcomings. Chu Qingyan nodded humbly. "I also feel that my moves aren't as powerful as Turin's. But being young isn't an excuse. I'm still weak. What can I do to improve?" Big Ice Cube was an outstanding swordsman. Wouldn't it be her loss if she didn't ask him? Moreover, he said that receiving guidance from an expert was better than years of practice. First, improve your inner strength. You've been learning for so long, but you haven't touched inner strength. Just having sword moves won't last long. But I'll ask Turin to arrange for you to learn this when we reach Jiang country. From the little fellow's tone, it seemed that she was really interested in practicing martial arts. Since that was the case, he didn't need to restrain her. The most basic thing for her to follow him was to have good martial arts skills. He didn't need to worry too much about her. "Okay." Chu Qingyan nodded happily, then looked outside. "Big Ice Cube, we'll reach Jiang country at noon. There's still some time. What should we do?" She was testing. In fact, she wanted to take the opportunity to go back to her room to make up for it. "Who knew? Go back to your room?" Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up. She was about to agree. "Bring the zither here. I'll teach you." Clang. She lay on the table and wailed. Did he have to be so cruel? Xiao Su's lips curved into a smile. This winter didn't seem to be as boring as before. Chapter 385. Although she was whining, it was useless. Because Big Ice Cube was a man of his words. Chu Qingyan put her hands on the zither. She did not know how to play it before, but now she knew how to play it. "It's too stiff. Relax." Xiao Su corrected her. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she felt a layer of cold sweat forming on her forehead. "How can I relax with such a powerful cold god sitting behind me? Do you think you are playing cotton?" Another voice came from behind her. Chu Qingyan felt that it was wrong for her to use too much strength, but it was also wrong for her to not use too much strength. She was really in a hurry. In the end, perhaps Xiao Su could not stand it anymore. He reached out from behind her and held her hand in a hugging position. Then he led her to play the zither. The rough and unpleasant sound of the zither poured out like flowing water and was pleasant to the ears. Chu Qingyan originally felt that her playing was terrible and did not want to continue learning. However, when she heard the clear sound of the zither flowing from her fingertips, she felt that it was very novel. As she played along with Big Ice Cube, her interest was piqued. Xiao Su looked at her glowing cheeks and put all his attention into it. Then he withdrew his hand. She could play simple music now. Big Ice Cube, I am so good. In the modern world, she was useless at playing musical instruments. Now that she could play one or two tunes, she could not be more satisfied. Where there is a will, there is a way. Xiao Su curled his lips. Chu Qingyan continued to play a few more times. Suddenly, she had an idea and asked, "If I sing a song, can you play it?" "I'll give it a try." Xiao Su thought for a moment before replying. "Okay, it is the Song of the Stars," Chu Qingyan said with a smile. She had sung this song to Big Ice Cube before. She was about to sing it again when she saw that he had already started playing. Chu Qingyan was speechless. She did not expect Big Ice Cube to remember the tune after only hearing it once. It was as if he had never forgotten it. Amazing! Chu Qingyan couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. Xiao Su was already used to it. It's just talent. Was it good to praise himself like that? Chu Qingyan cursed silently. The ancient songs were too complicated. For a beginner like her, the Song of the Stars was more suitable for her, so Xiao Su taught her this song first. When Hualing came in to inform them that the ship was about to enter the harbor, Chu Qingyan could basically play this song by herself. Xiao Su withdrew his hand and stood up. "Get ready to dock." Hualing accepted the order and left. As early as yesterday, everyone had already packed their things and could disembark as soon as the ship docked at the port. When Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan walked onto the deck, Xiao Lai-chi and the others were already dressed as guards, standing behind Xiao Su. Chu Qingyan was dressed as a youth with Xining and Jin Xian standing behind her. Because it was winter, even in the afternoon, there weren't many people going in and out. There were only 3 to 5 ships docked at the harbor. The soldiers wearing dark green uniforms walked in an orderly manner, patrolling back and forth. It was a quiet and warm afternoon. "We're finally here, Jiang country." Chu Qingyan opened her hands and welcomed the wind. Her lips were filled with a smile and her voice was filled with joy. Xiao Su's calm eyes also revealed a trace of relief because of her mood. As far as the eye could see, there were endless mountains and lush evergreen trees everywhere. The seawater was crystal clear, and the reflection of the water along the shore was a sky full of white clouds. Chu Qingyan thought that perhaps this was a good start. Although her right eyelid kept twitching, she didn't care at all. The ship docked at the harbor and a group of people walked down. Chu Qingyan looked at the empty harbor and looked around. Then, she asked with a puzzled expression, "Big Ice Cube, where's your old friend?" Xiao Su glanced at the harbor and frowned slightly. At this moment, Hualing heard the voice and walked over with a smile. "Master, young Master Yi said that he's waiting for us at the checkpoint." Chu Qingyan looked in the direction Hualing was pointing and saw a door plate appear in front of her. It was the checkpoint. She couldn't help but smile. This was a bit like the security checkpoint where one had to get off a train and get out with a ticket. Thus, the group of people smoothly passed through the checkpoint with Zheng Zixing's official document. They were still disguised as merchants who entered Jiang country to do business, but they were currently from Junlan, not Sichuan. Chu Qingyan had to admit that Zheng Zixing's actions not only helped them cut off the Sichuan country's tracking, but also used the identity of Junlan as a cover. Although she was dissatisfied with Zheng Zixing and despised him for threatening Big Ice Cube, he helped them a lot on the way to Jiang country smoothly. It could be said that his merits offset his faults. "Brother Xiao, did you crawl here? I thought you would only come when your hair turned white." A rude, teasing voice sounded from the side. Chu Qingyan was stunned. This voice was as moving as the snow falling in winter, and the wind blowing through the willow branches. Just by hearing this voice, Chu Qingyan already had a good impression of this person. "It seems that you still look as youthful as before." Xiao Su didn't show any mercy and retorted lightly. "Tisk, you're still so cold. I don't know if you'll freeze the people around you to death. I think it's better if you don't come in winter. Jiang country is already cold. If you come, I'll probably freeze," the voice said with a gentle smile. From this exchange, it could be seen that Big Ice Cube had a good relationship with this person. At least, It was the first time in her memory that someone could speak to Big Ice Cube in such a tone. Where is he? Mr. Chu looked around curiously. Chu Qingyan scanned her surroundings, but she could not see anyone. Big Ice Cube, why doesn't your old friend come out to meet us? She asked in a low voice. At this time, after entering the entrance, they could see a bustling crowd. Compared to outside the port, it was like a market and a wilderness. It was also because of this that they didn't know where he was. However, judging from his voice, he should be quite young. It's still so noisy. If you don't come out, we'll leave. Xiao Su didn't give him face. After saying that, he led the group forward. It's really not fun. You're still so boring after so many years. The other party seemed to be shaking his head and sighing. As soon as he finished speaking, a light blue figure came out of the crowd against the flow. He was particularly eye-catching. Although it was winter, he held a folding fan in his hand and fanned himself from time to time. His simple brocade robe fluttered in the wind. The corners of his robe shone with a golden light under the sun, and the thin golden threads on his robe could be faintly seen. His facial features were deep and straight. The corners of his peach blossom eyes were slightly raised, and instantly lit up his entire face. He looked around and his eyes were full of affection. It seemed that as long as one looked into his eyes, one would be able to indulge in his tenderness. What an elegant and handsome man with affectionate eyes. Chu Qingyan finally saw what it meant to have peach blossoms shining brightly, and so did the person in front of her. Chapter 386. Yiling Feng waved his fan and walked out leisurely. Every step he took was elegant, solemn, and candid. When he arrived in front of the crowd, he clasped his hands together and smiled. I am Yiling Feng, handsome and confident. My face is like Song Yu's, and my appearance is better than Pan An's. Greetings, everyone. Originally, the crowd was still subdued by this handsome man, but the moment he opened his mouth, everyone's worldview was shattered. Chu Qingyan touched the goosebumps on her arm. She really wanted to ask, bro, do you still have your integrity? As if he was already used to everyone's gazes, Yiling Feng's gaze landed on Chu Qingyan. He smiled amiably and said, this must be Brother Xiao's wife. She is really obedient and wanly. Brother Xiao is a perfect match. Hearing his words, Chu Qingyan trembled with goosebumps again. She was still young and dressed in men's clothes. How could he see her beauty? This person really seemed to have soaked in honey. He was so glib-tongued. No wonder Big Ice Cube said that he had been through thousands of flowers, but not a single leaf touched him. He was simply a typical example of a romantic wastrel. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and looked at him. You have a problem with that? Yiling Feng flung away his fan and covered his mouth to smile. I dare not. It's just that when we parted that year, I thought Brother Xiao would be alone for the rest of his life. I didn't expect you to find a partner earlier than me and Feng Yi. It's really unexpected. Chu Qingyan deeply agreed. With Big Ice Cube's personality, he might really be alone for the rest of his life. However, when she thought about it again, she found it funny that she was dragged into it again. Chu Qingyan greets young Master Yi. The trip to Jiang country will depend on young Master Yi. Chu Qingyan nodded in greeting. After all, politeness demands reciprocity. Although this person looked a bit like a playboy, he spoke elegantly and she quite liked his personality. Moreover, he could become friends with Big Ice Cube. He must have his unique side. After all, one could not judge a person by their appearance. Thus, it was very important to have a good relationship with him. Your family's girl is still the most polite. Your personality is like a latrine stone, smelly and hard. Yiling Feng looked at Xiao Su with some disdain. Xiao Su was familiar with his good friend's personality. If he allowed him to continue talking, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to avoid anything. You always talk so much nonsense. Yiling Feng waved his fan and shrugged. You're always so quiet. If your girl lived with you, she would probably be bored to death by you. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she once again deeply agreed. She wanted to nod, but when she met the Big Ice Cube's gaze, her neck stiffened and she didn't dare to move. She grinned at him to express her goodwill, but unfortunately, he didn't appreciate it and turned his head to ignore her. Let's go. If we don't leave now, it's going to be dark soon. Tonight, this young master is going to bring you all to Linlang Pavilion to listen to music. Recently, there have been a few beautiful ladies with graceful figures. Their singing is really good. Yi Lingfeng called out. As soon as he finished speaking, a few people who looked like servants appeared out of nowhere. They took the luggage from Xining and the others and led them forward. Chu Qingyan turned her head with some confusion and asked, "Big Ice Cube, what kind of place is this Linlang Pavilion? Is it a restaurant?" When she heard Yi Lingfeng talking about singing, why did she have the misconception that it was a place of fireworks and wine? Xiao Su's expression was indifferent. Don't pay attention to him. He's just talking nonsense again. Chu Qingyan nodded. At this moment, a solicitous voice sounded from behind them. "May I ask your name? How old are you? Where do you live? Are you engaged? Are your parents still alive? Do you have someone you like?" Wasn't this Yi Lingfeng's voice? Chu Qingyan turned her head and saw Yi Lingfeng smiling like a spring breeze. He bent over and asked Qing Yenluo seriously. Was this called a graceful version of flirting? Big Ice Cube, is this how people in the Jiang Kingdom hit on girls? Chu Qingyan twitched her mouth and asked the person beside her. He's not from the Jiang Kingdom. This is his personal nature. You don't have to pay attention to him. Someone will come to tease him later. Xiao Su calculated the time. That person should be arriving soon. Who was it? Chu Qingyan was full of curiosity. Qing Yenluo did not expect this person to be so bold as to ask so many questions at once. She wanted to turn him down with a cold face, but when she caught a glimpse of the indifferent look on Kong Ling's face, she was inexplicably annoyed. Without thinking, she put on a smile and said, "My name is Qing Yenluo. Greetings to young Master Yi." She thought that Yi Lingfeng would be rebuffed. She didn't expect to hear such a sweet reply from Sister Yenluo. She almost fell. Qing Yenluo. What a good name. Yi Lingfeng patted his fan and smiled charmingly. It's right for a gentle and beautiful lady like Miss Cheng to come to the Jiang Kingdom. There's nothing much to say about the Jiang Kingdom. It's famous for women's accessories. When the time comes, I'll bring Miss Cheng around. Perhaps you'll find something you like. Then I'll have to trouble you, young Master Yi. Qing Yenluo smiled. When Hualing saw this, he poked the person beside him. "Hey, your woman is about to be stolen. Why aren't you stopping him? She has her own freedom. I have no right to interfere." Ethereal looked away. He didn't want to see her chatting intimately with someone else. However, just because he couldn't see it didn't mean that he couldn't hear it. He heard the conversation and his expression turned ugly. Chu Qingyan rubbed her nose. Had Sister Yenluo changed her personality? Didn't she hate flirtatious men? What was wrong with her today? Yi Lingfeng had already prepared a carriage for them. After they got in, they headed to the nearest city gate. The group was travel-worn, but they soon arrived at a restaurant. The words Linlang Pavilion were written on the signboard. Chu Qingyan lifted the curtains and saw a group of scantily clad women leaning against the railings. They greeted them when they saw them. "Dear guests, we have the most expensive sea cucumbers and the most delicious abalones. Come in and have a taste." If they hadn't mentioned food, she would have thought that they were in a brothel. It was still somewhat unbearable to be so ostentatious in broad daylight. Hualing and the rest exchanged glances before turning to look at their master, waiting for his orders. Chu Qingyan also turned to look at him. To be honest, she wouldn't be able to eat anything in such a place, no matter how good the food was. "What's wrong? Aren't you getting off the carriage? This is a place I specially chose. Not only can you eat delicious food, but you can also admire beauties. There's no other place like this in the entire town." Yi Lingfeng walked to the side of Xiao Su's carriage and leisurely spoke while fanning himself with his fan. Xiao Su looked at him coldly. "I'll give you two choices. Go somewhere else or stay here and let us go." Yi Lingfeng sighed. "You're still the same. You've been traveling for so many years. What's there to be afraid of? What a waste of resources." After he said that, he turned around and beckoned everyone to leave for the next location. Chapter 387. As the carriage continued to move forward, Chu Qingyan opened her mouth and said, Big Ice Cube, your friend is really unexpected. Xiao Su curled his lips. He was just teasing you just now, he won't really bring you in. Then why is he doing this? Is it really fun? Chu Qingyan rubbed her head, not understanding this person's personality. Xiao Su shook his head helplessly. This friend of his found joy in provoking him, but he couldn't do it every time, so he would occasionally think of some dirty tricks. There were women and children in the carriage, so he knew that no matter how mischievous he was, he still had a sense of propriety. Not long after, the carriage stopped again. This time, it was a restaurant. Young Master Yi, welcome. You haven't come to our Yellow Crane restaurant in a while. The moment he saw Yi Lingfeng, the restaurant owner came out to welcome him. We even brought an important guest today. Your presence brings light to our humble dwelling. The restaurant owner's flattery made Yi Lingfeng reveal a smile. Boss Lin is too polite. Prepare a large private room. This young master wants to entertain a guest. Good. I will have someone arrange it. This way, please. Boss Lin was very respectful as he bowed in invitation. Yi Lingfeng turned around and smiled at everyone. The Jiang country's dishes here are very authentic, try it later. Thus, everyone followed him up the stairs. What is this Yi Lingfeng's background? Why is the restaurant owner so attentive to him? Chu Qingyan followed a few steps behind and asked Hualing. Hualing replied, the Yi family is in the silk business, and their shops are all over the Jiang country, monopolizing the clothing of the imperial harem of the Jiang country's imperial family. Young Master Yi is the only son of the Yi family, so this subordinate doesn't need to say anything. This little young master can already guess young Master Yi's background in the Jiang country. Chu Qingyan clicked her tongue. If it was just shops all over the Jiang country, it wouldn't be a big deal, but if he was in charge of the Jiang country's imperial family's clothing, then it would be different. Whether it was the common people or the high officials and nobles, they had always used the imperial harem's clothing as the mainstream clothing every year. Once a harem wore a certain clothing, it would quickly become popular in the high society. For a merchant to be able to reach such a stage, it would be a lie if he didn't have many connections behind him. Thinking of this, Chu Qingyan's eyes lit up slightly. The royal clothes of the Jiang kingdom? Then, could he follow this path to find the ice crystal flower? When the dishes were served, Yi Lingfeng invited everyone to enjoy. Mrs. Chu was a little tired, so she went to her room with Mr. Chu to rest. Xiao Su, Chu Qingyan, Qingyan Luo, and the others sat around the table. After introducing the dishes on the table, Yi Lingfeng felt a gaze on him. He paused and turned around. Little girl from the Xiao family, you keep looking at me. Aren't you worried that Xiao Su will be jealous? Xiao Su glanced at him indifferently. She's just guessing your identity. I see. Yi Lingfeng opened his fan and waved it. Little girl from the Xiao family, your family's Xiao Su really understands you. You almost scared this young master to death. You shouldn't covet your friend's wife. The corners of Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. This person really didn't know what to say. Xiao Su said coldly, even food can't shut your mouth. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but praise him in her heart. The big ice cube was really domineering. You're really protective. I was just teasing you, but you're serious. But honestly, little girl from the Xiao family, you've been looking at me for so long. Do you have any questions? Yi Lingfeng didn't care about his friend's cold face. He said with great interest, do you think that I'm handsome, so you want to abandon the dark side and join the light side? Abandon the dark side and join the light side? The usage of this idiom was really too. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt that with such a friend, the big ice cube would be even colder. Young Master Yi, you're thinking too much. Qingyan heard that you're in the royal silk business. Have you heard of the ice crystal flower? She didn't beat around the bush and chose to get straight to the point. Sister Yen Luo said that the snake kiss poison could only be controlled for 81 days. Almost half of the time had passed. If there was no progress, then the poison in the big ice cube's body? Yi Lingfeng raised his eyebrows. He was a little surprised by Chu Qingyan's straightforwardness. He didn't answer Chu Qingyan. Instead, he turned to Xiao Su and said, are you sure that your little wife is 10 years old and not 20 years old? You can't judge a book by its cover. Xiao Su took a sip of tea and replied slowly. Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. She had to admit that this playboy had seen countless people in the field of love. He could tell her mental age at a glance. However, her age was there for all to see, so she wasn't afraid that he would see through her. Instead, she waited for his answer with sparkling eyes. "You seem to be quite proud," Yi Lingfeng muttered to himself. Then, he turned to Chu Qingyan and said seriously, "I already know about the ice crystal flower. However, for so many years, there has been a rumor in the Jiang Kingdom that the ice crystal flower is in the Jiang Kingdom's imperial palace and is being carefully kept in the imperial study by the Jiang Kingdom's emperor. It's a pity that this is only a rumor. I've sent people to inquire about it. So many officials have entered the imperial study, but no one has seen the ice crystal flower." Chu Qingyan couldn't help but purse her lips. She was a little anxious. Even with Yi Lingfeng's connections, he couldn't find it. Wouldn't it be even harder for outsiders like them? Xiao Su sensed her uneasiness and gently stroked her head. "Don't worry. Let nature take its course." Chu Qingyan knew that there was no other way but to wait. Cheng Yanluo and the others were already used to the interaction between the two, but in Yi Lingfeng's eyes, it was like a red rain falling from the sky. Was this still the cold, heartless, and unapproachable Xiao Su that he knew? It seemed that he had to re-evaluate this Chu Qingyan. What was so special about her that Xiao Su treated her differently? Chu Qingyan inadvertently raised her eyes and saw a certain someone who had always been elegant, looking like he had seen a ghost. It was a little comical. Hua Ling and the others shook their heads. If young Master Yi saw her a few more times a day, he would probably get used to it. Thus, everyone began to eat. At this time, Yi Lingfeng turned to Cheng Yanluo and politely said, "Miss Cheng, try this autumn maple leaf. It's slightly spicy and has a very crisp texture." "Alright, thank you, young master." Cheng Yanluo smiled and put a piece into her mouth. The taste was really good. She nodded at Yi Lingfeng. Seeing this, Kong Ling's eyes dimmed. He lowered his head and drank the wine in his cup. "Miss Cheng, don't call me young master Yi. It's too formal. You can just call me Lingfeng. Can I also call you Yanluo?" Yi Lingfeng said with a smile. Chu Qingyan choked on her soup. Wasn't this flirting a little too fast? Just as Yi Lingfeng was waiting for Cheng Yanluo's response, a delicate voice sounded through the door. "Yi Lingfeng, you bastard! How dare you flirt with other women with your back facing me?" Chapter 388. As soon as she said that, Chu Qingyan clearly saw the gentle smile on Yi Lingfeng's face twitch unnaturally. "Oh no, she found me again." At this moment, Cheng Yanluo heaved a sigh of relief. Previously, she was willing to talk to Yi Lingfeng only because she wanted to annoy Murongju. Even without him, she still had suitors. However, when she saw his indifferent expression, she had already given up on that thought. She felt that there was no need to change herself just because of a fit of pique. As soon as his voice fell, the door of the private room opened, and a beautiful young girl wearing a rose-colored long dress walked out. She had a crystal necklace with rose petals on her forehead. Her appearance was sweet, fresh, and refined, like a fairy from the jade pool who had accidentally entered the mortal world. At first sight, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but exclaim in her heart, "What a little fairy!" However, this little fairy seemed to be in a bad mood. Her brows were raised and her grape-like eyes swept across the crowd. Finally, her gaze fell on Yi Lingfeng, who had been trying to reduce his presence. Then she strode over angrily. Chu Qingyan's seat just happened to be close to Yi Lingfeng. Seeing that she was about to settle scores, she immediately moved aside to make space for her. Just when everyone thought that a big fight was about to break out, the rose-like young girl walked up to Yi Lingfeng. Suddenly, she blinked her eyes, and tears of innocence and grievance filled her big eyes. She pursed her lips and said, "Lingfeng, why are you always avoiding me? From Yangcheng to here, wherever I chased you, you immediately disappeared. If I didn't see you here today, I think I would have lost you again." Everyone's jaws dropped in shock. Didn't she say that she wanted to catch the adulterer and settle scores? Something didn't seem right. Yi Lingfeng seemed to have gotten used to the other party's way of speaking. The unnatural expression on his face quickly disappeared. He greeted her politely. "So it's Miss Dugu. I didn't expect to meet you in such a remote place. What a coincidence." "What coincidence? This lady followed you here. Don't tell me you don't know." The rose-like young girl glared at him indignantly. Her previous gentleness was swept away and she said hatefully. Upon hearing his words, she knew that he wanted to cut ties with her again. Yi Lingfeng still had a courteous smile on his handsome face. "Miss Dugu, you're still an unmarried lady. It's best if you don't say such things. It will ruin your reputation." Chu Qingyan blinked. This man had just been flirting with Yen Luo. How did he turn into an upright gentleman in front of this little girl in the blink of an eye? Could it be that this person had two faces? As Chu Qingyan ate, she enjoyed the free show that she was watching. Lady Rosa Multiflora reacted as if she had just heard the funniest joke in the world. She frowned and swept her gaze across the table. Finally, her gaze landed on Qing Yenluo. She pointed at her and said angrily to Yi Lingfeng, "These are all your excuses. You were still shamelessly trying to curry favor with this lady. Don't think that I didn't hear you. Yi Lingfeng, you womanizer." Cheng Yenluo was called out, but her face was calm. She thought that this little girl's words were quite amusing. It didn't matter if he was exposed, but if he was humiliated in front of his good friend, no matter how magnanimous he was, he wouldn't be able to keep his face. Yi Lingfeng put away his smile and said in a serious voice, "Miss Dugu, please don't talk nonsense. This is a rumor." Lady Rosa Multiflora ignored his change in expression and turned to Chu Qingyan. "Little brother, we've talked for so long. I'm dying of thirst. Help me pour a cup of tea." Chu Qingyan was amused. This little girl was quite cute. It seemed that this was going to be a long battle. She immediately poured a cup of tea and handed it to the girl. She even instructed, "Drink slowly. There's no rush. Take your time and settle the score." When Yi Lingfeng heard this, he cast a reproachful look at Xiao Su. "It's fine if you don't persuade her, but why are you fanning the flames?" Xiao Su glanced back at him. "You call this fanning the flames? You're the one who caused this peach blossom debt. You should settle it yourself. You're lucky that the little guy didn't make trouble for you. Sure enough, he's a master who protects his own." Yi Lingfeng hatefully said in his heart. Lady Rosa Multiflora took the tea and drank it in one gulp. It was obvious that she was really thirsty, but she didn't hesitate. She raised her sleeve to wipe the water from the corner of her mouth, and then continued to speak to Yi Lingfeng with righteous indignation. "I don't care. Anyway, you promised me that you would take care of me for a lifetime. You actually abandoned me. Where did the etiquette, justice, integrity, and shame that you studied go?" Yi Lingfeng held his forehead. If he had known that she was like this, he wouldn't have provoked her in the first place. It was as if he had dug a hole for himself and accidentally buried himself in it. Chu Qingyan felt that to be able to make such a wanderer reveal such a distressed look, this girl's skill was really admirable. She saw her eyes rolling around the whole table of food. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but find it funny and said to her, "Sister Dugu, you haven't eaten yet, right? Take a rest first. If there's anything, we can talk about it later. First, eat with us." Once she finished speaking, Chu Qingyan asked for another pair of chopsticks and bowls to be prepared. Young Lady Rose did not reject the offer. She smiled innocently at Chu Qingyan and said, "All right, then I won't stand on ceremony." As soon as the chopsticks and bowls were served, the little girl unceremoniously started to eat. Although she was very hungry, her behavior was gentle and polite. Chu Qingyan felt that although she spoke lively and cheerful, when she was quiet, she gave people a completely opposite feeling. Her every move was elegant and natural. Chu Qingyan felt that even a big family might not be able to raise such a girl. "You little brother is really cute. This girl is very fond of you. My name is Dugu Qing. What's your name?" Dugu Qing, who was half full, asked her with a smile. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled. "My name is Chu Qingyan. I'm very happy to meet you, Sister Dugu." She felt that this Dugu Qing should be 15 or 16 years old. Her appearance was likable, her personality was cheerful, and her speech was not like those girls in ancient times. Instead, she had the air of a big family, so she also felt close to her. After Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she casually introduced the people at the table. Yi Lingfeng originally wanted to send her away after she finished eating, but he didn't expect her to chat and laugh with everyone, so he swallowed his words. Dugu Qing wasn't afraid of strangers. After getting familiar with everyone, she looked at Qing Yanluo seriously and said earnestly, "Sister Yanluo, Lingfeng is a womanizer. Don't be fooled by him. 10 days ago, he cheated a girl from a pastry shop. 5 days ago, he cheated a girl from a rouge shop. 3 days ago, he hit on a young lady from an official's family. He's really a womanizer. Don't be fooled by him. Hey, Lingfeng, why are you grabbing me?" Before she could finish speaking, Yi Lingfeng grabbed her wrist and dragged her to the door. Before he left, he said to everyone, "I have some private matters to attend to. I'll be back in a while. Everyone, please forgive me." Chu Qingyan listened to the shouting from near and far. She was puzzled and asked the person beside her, "Why does your good friend sound like a womanizer? Does he specialize in deceiving innocent girls?" Xiao Su's hand that was holding the cup paused. He said faintly, "That's why you should stay away from him." Oh. If Yi Lingfeng heard his good friend's words, he would probably bleed. His reputation would be ruined for no reason. Chapter 389. After the meal, Yi Lingfeng also came back. His face was still as radiant as when they first met, but she could faintly feel that something was different. However, Chu Qingyan didn't ask too much. After all, they had only known each other for the first time, and it would be too much to poke her nose into his business. What happened just now was just a small episode, and it would pass just like that. "I've already booked rooms for you in this restaurant. Rest for the night, and I'll take you to the capital of Jiang Kingdom tomorrow. It's at least 3 to 5 days' journey from here to the capital, so it's better to conserve your energy." After Yi Lingfeng finished speaking, someone came in to lead everyone to their rooms. Before leaving, Chu Qingyan still asked curiously, "Where's Miss Dugu? Why don't I see her?" Yi Lingfeng replied with a smile, "She probably went back. Don't worry, she's not a child." Chu Qingyan nodded and left with Xining and Jin Exin. At this time, everyone had already dispersed, and only Xiao Su and him were left in the private room. Only then did Yi Lingfeng remove the gentle smile on his face. His face was pale as he looked at his good friend indignantly. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't been tripped up in Junlan and I hadn't been forced to stay for a few more days, she wouldn't have caught up with me. Didn't you see her blabbering just now? She ruined my gentleman image." "Gentleman image? Do you have that?" Xiao Su's tone was full of suspicion. Yi Lingfeng snorted. "Who in Jiang Kingdom doesn't know that the Yi family's young master is gentle and elegant? He treats people modestly, is handsome, and has elegant manners. Who would have thought that he would be defeated by this little girl? If I could go back to that afternoon, I wouldn't have been fooled by her appearance. I would have treated her to a meal and saved her once. Otherwise, why would I be avoiding her like I'm avoiding a debt? I can only say that you deserve it. After so many years, you still can't change your nature. Isn't there a saying that goes, after playing with an eagle all your life, you were pecked blind by an eagle in the end? I think you reap what you sow." Back then, when he was a playboy, she had warned him. Unfortunately, he still did as he pleased. Today, he finally received his retribution. Hearing his good friend gloating instead of comforting him, Yi Lingfeng felt extremely frustrated. "You also know that I don't have any big ambitions. Can't I live a carefree life? Anyway, I don't have any objections. You can do whatever you want." Xiao Su acted as if he had nothing to do with it. Yi Lingfeng rubbed his nose. He had been playing with women for so many years, and he had always been able to escape unscathed. Unfortunately, this time, he was tightly entangled. He was not as tenacious as a woman. She had been following him from the capital of Jiang Kingdom until now. It had been at least 2 or 3 months. He really did not know whether this Duguqing was stupid or naive. He was just playing around, but she took it seriously. Whenever he thought of her, he would have a headache, so he simply stopped thinking about it. "Forget it. Let's not talk about my matters anymore. You, on the other hand, how did you get yourself into this situation? Although he had seen the whole story in the letter, it was not as real as what the person involved said. Xiao Su's eyes curved, and there was a bit of ridicule in his eyes. It's just getting rid of the donkey after it has outlived its usefulness. What's there to talk about? This is the first time I've seen you so unabashedly evaluate your imperial father. In the past, when we talked about this, you were always cold as if someone owed you millions of silver taels. Now, you've finally figured it out yourself? Yi Lingfeng seized the opportunity to counterattack. Who asked him to laugh at him just now? Xiao Su didn't care about his good friend's attitude. His eyes were indifferent. It's just that I've gotten over it. The world is too big, and people are just a drop in the ocean. I thought I could shoulder a lot, but later I found out I was just overestimating my own abilities. Every time he talked about himself, he always had an indifferent look, but he placed too much importance on Sichuan. For example, responsibility, filial piety, loyalty. But when he heard him talk about it now, Yi Lingfeng felt that he had changed a lot. He was no longer so stubborn and cared so much. Yi Lingfeng wondered what he had experienced after not seeing him for a few years. Or who had changed him. He and Feng Yi had tried every means to help him get out of that quagmire, but he was indifferent. In the end, they could only give up. But after so many years, he was no longer the King of England who was only satisfied with the Liang family, and the world. Who could have the ability to change him? Yi Lingfeng felt very curious. He really wanted to meet this person. He felt that this person must be an amazing person. If possible, he wanted to ask for advice. Unfortunately, Yi Lingfeng did not know that this person was so far away but so close. Xiao Su, you've changed a lot. If the face-changing mask on your face was the same as it was a few years ago, I would think that someone had secretly swapped your soul. Yi Lingfeng joked. Then do you want me to tell you a few embarrassing things from a few years ago so that we can compare them? Xiao Su knew that he was joking with him, so he asked without any politeness. Yi Lingfeng covered his mouth with his fan and laughed. You're such a person who can't take a joke. Look at Feng Yi. Although she's cold and cheerless, she can tell a cold joke easily. You two are birds of a feather. Xiao Su commented without holding back. In a courtyard far away in a town near the river, a handsome and slender man couldn't help but sneeze. Then he narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction of Jiang country. It must be those two people who were teasing him behind his back. He really made bad friends by mistake. Yi Lingfeng shrugged indifferently. He had heard these words more than a dozen times, but after not seeing them for so many years, he still missed these words. That's right, how long can the poison in your body last? Yi Lingfeng thought of business and his expression became serious. Less than 50 days. He did not calculate the time carefully, but there was a little fellow beside him who was very persistent about this matter. Every day that passed, she would cross out a number, so he did not have to remember. It seems that time is really tight. Yi Lingfeng's peach blossom eyes narrowed slightly, a touch of worry flashing through his eyes. Then he pretended to be relaxed and said, Don't worry. It's not said that good people don't live long, but evil people live 1,000 years. You're a demon from hell, your hands are stained with the blood of so many people. Outsiders say that you're a demon who kills without blinking an eye. You won't die so young. Yi Lingfeng reached out to pat his shoulder to comfort him, but he dodged. Yi Lingfeng couldn't help but take back his hand. Why was this person's obsession with cleanliness still so strong? It wasn't cute at all. Then I'll be indebted to your auspicious words. He knew that his good friend was truly concerned about him, so he didn't argue with him. Then how are you going to explain to Sichuan country? Are you going to hide for the rest of your life? Yi Lingfeng asked curiously. When that arrow fell, there would be no king of England, Xiao Su, in this world. Xiao Su held the teacup and frowned. Yi Lingfeng was stunned for a moment. Chapter 390. When Xiao Su said, There is no king of England, Xiao Su, in this world, Yi Lingfeng felt that there was something wrong with his ears. That was why he was hallucinating. Xiao Su, you're not joking, right? Yi Lingfeng still couldn't believe it. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows and looked at him coldly. Do I look like the kind of person who would joke? His face was full of disdain. Yi Lingfeng felt that he was going to scratch the wall. This explosive news was too much for him to bear. It wasn't because of Xiao Su's words, but because of his change. He still remembered that year when Xiao Su wanted to return to the capital to report on his work. He and Feng Yi had advised him that if it was really an abyss of suffering over there, then he should leave. The world was big and he could make it his home. But how did this guy reply to them? It was still vivid in his mind. A man's ambition is to travel far, and he should put the country first. A real man should put the responsibility on his shoulders first. At that time, this sentence blocked the two of them so much that they couldn't say a word. But today? Damn, he actually went back on his words. What happened to him after not seeing him for a few years? But you weren't at that time? He couldn't help but ask. Knowing the shock in his friend's heart, Xiao Su's face was calm. I've done all the responsibilities that I should do. Why can't I have some free days? Do I have to become a machine that works non-stop? This was what the little guy had said to him when he was analyzing his subordinate's corruption case all night. Although he didn't have any special impression of it at that time, when his friend asked, this sentence appeared in his mind. Yi Lingfeng shook his head with a look of disbelief. Changed. You've changed. You're no longer the cold-faced lord who talks about filial piety and etiquette. But it was good that he had changed. At least the current him was what they wanted to see. Don't tell me I'm still the same as you. Every time you see me, there are always a few confidants chasing after you? Xiao Su knew what he was thinking, but he didn't show any mercy. He knew that his good friend was thick-skinned and invulnerable. Yi Lingfeng, who had been stabbed in the back for no reason, was not as tough as he claimed to be. Yi Lingfeng, who had hit the nail on the head, could not help but wail in his heart. He complained, Xiao Su, you bastard, you've become bad. In the past, you couldn't even make a fart with a stick. Now, you've actually learned how to trick people. Watch your words. I don't mind letting your close female friends know that you're here. Xiao Su glanced at him. Damn it, too evil. Yi Lingfeng snorted in his heart. What are your plans for the future? Yi Lingfeng took a sip of wine and asked. If everything goes well, then I'll just raise my child and play with him. That's how I'll spend my life. Xiao Su's expression was indifferent, but there was a faint light in his eyes. It was impossible to tell what he was thinking. Yi Lingfeng's mouth twitched. The child you're talking about can't be your little wife, right? Is there anyone else? Xiao Su asked in return. His tone seemed to be saying that he had asked an idiotic question again. You're treating him like a child? Really? Yi Lingfeng really wanted to ask, have you considered the feelings of your child? Unfortunately, he swallowed his words in the end. You have a problem with that? He looked like he had nothing to do with him. I wouldn't dare. Yi Lingfeng immediately lowered his head and drank. He, Xiao Su and Feng Yi were the same age. Xiao Su and Feng Yi were about the same age, while he was younger by a year. However, Xiao Su's personality was calm, and he had the authority of a big brother, so if he said anything he would not resist most of the time. For example, right now, when he was being bullied. Because they had to go out tomorrow, Xiao Su left first, leaving Yi Lingfeng drinking alone. I have to tell Feng Yi that Xiao Su has become bad. No, I can't tell him. I have to let him experience the feeling of being stabbed. After all, good friends should share blessings and misfortunes together. Yi Lingfeng, who looked hurt just now, had already recovered his elegant and flirtatious appearance. However, the corners of his mouth revealed a mischievous smile. Back in the room, Xiao Su found the person lying on his table asleep. However, she was not in a deep sleep. When she heard the door close, she woke up. Big Ice Cube, you're back? Chu Qingyan rubbed her eyes. Looking at the person slowly approaching, she asked in a soft voice. And why don't you sleep in your room? There was a heater in the room. The moment he entered, he took off his cloak. At this time, Chu Qingyan had already walked up on her own accord. She took his cloak and hung it on the hanger at the side. She shrugged and looked a little depressed. I just arrived in Jiang country today and heard that there was no news of the ice crystal flower. I just asked Tuoling and they still can't find the love grass. I feel uneasy. Being uneasy was actually conservative. In her heart, she was afraid. No matter how much she had mentally prepared herself in the past, she had always told herself that as long as she came to Jiang country, there would be hope for Big Ice Cube's illness. This belief made her persist from Sichuan to Junlan, and then to Jiang country. But when that belief reached its destination, it seemed to have lost its strength. It never gathered in her heart again. Little Chu Qingyan's strange expression did not escape Xiao Su's eyes. He walked to the couch in the middle of the room. His left hand rested on the arrow sleeve of his right hand. He pulled it up slightly and said to her with a calm expression, "Qing, come here." He rarely called her name. When she suddenly heard him call her, Chu Qingyan subconsciously paused. Then, she obediently walked over and sat down in the direction he pointed. She knew that he had something to say to her. She closed her mouth, but she was still a little depressed. "Qingyan, how many more days until the poison takes effect?" he asked. 45 days, she answered. She remembered the time perfectly. Every time a day passed, she felt as if something had been taken away from her heart. She cherished it very much. "I remember you once said that as long as there's a glimmer of hope, you won't give up so easily, right?" At this moment, Xiao Su was no longer the cold-faced and selfless king standing on the podium. Instead, he was someone who had put down all his airs and used all his gentleness to speak to the person in front of him. She did not answer. Instead, she nodded. She knew what he wanted to say, but she still felt sad. "There are only 40 days left. We still have time. What are you worried about?" Xiao Su's lips curved into a rare smile in front of her. It was extremely comforting. Perhaps she was encouraged by his smile, but Chu Qingyan mumbled, "That's right. We still have more than a month's time. Thinking about it, I don't feel so bad anymore." He raised his hand and placed it on her head. His gaze was deep and his voice was extremely gentle. "Yes, and I don't intend to give up. After working so hard for so many years, how can I die young without enjoying it? I haven't seen you grow up yet. How can I bear to leave?" Chu Qingyan did not know when it started, but he had poured all his gentleness into her. And he did not know either. Everything was just following his heart. Chapter 391. Hearing the Big Ice Cube's words, Chu Qingyan suddenly felt a little ashamed. "I'm sorry." He was the one who was suffering from mental and physical torture. What she had to do was to make him relax and give him positive energy. In the end, she would always pester him and ask him to comfort her. Chu Qingyan wrung her hands together with a bitter expression on her face. "You've already done a great job." Xiao Su pulled her into his arms and lowered his voice a lot. Whether it was facing those sneak attacks in Xixian, or her steadiness in the medical center, or her calmness in the princess's residence, or her attentiveness on the ship. In his eyes, she had already done very well, beyond his imagination. A 10-year-old child could do what an adult could not do. Her mental strength was enough to make people have a whole new level of respect for her. Chu Qingyan buried her face in his clothes and blushed slightly. It was the Big Ice Cube who praised her so straightforwardly. He should not be comforting her. It should not be, it should not be. She repeated the important thing 3 times in her heart. After the two of them waited quietly in the room for a while, Chu Qingyan went back to wash up and rest. From tomorrow onwards, they would really start fighting in the Jiang country. It was a dreamless night until dawn. There was breakfast in the restaurant. Chu Qingyan woke up early and brought Xining downstairs to eat. The moment Chu Qingyan sat down, she saw the Rose girl sitting not far away, Dugu Qing. She could not help but raise her eyebrows. According to Yi Lingfeng's words, didn't Dugu Qing leave long ago? Why was she still here? And her eyes were looking at the stairs, as if she was waiting for someone. Chu Qingyan understood. Although it was her first time meeting Yi Lingfeng, she felt that he was a good person except for being a little dissolute. But it seemed a little inappropriate for him to be the object of her affection. She did not want to interfere at first, but she felt that Dugu Qing's temper was quite to her taste. She could not help but smile and wave at her. "Sister Dugu, have you eaten breakfast? If you haven't, we can share the table if you don't mind." If not for Chu Qingyan's words, Du Qing, who only paid attention to Yi Lingfeng, would not have noticed her presence. "Little Qingyan, why are you here?" The enthusiastic Du Qing came over and asked, "When did you come down? Why didn't I see you?" Chu Qingyan complained in her heart. Did she look so insignificant? And what kind of name was this? She realized that she had many nicknames now. Du Qing giggled. "I love all sweet food, and I won't reject any delicious food." Chu Qingyan nodded in understanding. She called the waiter and ordered bean buns, glutinous rice balls, white rice porridge, dried salted vegetables, egg custard, and sugar-fried chestnuts. After ordering a round, Du Qing blinked and looked at her as if she saw a new world. "Little Qingyan, if I didn't see your face, I would think that you're the same age as me. You don't have the naivety of your age." It had to be said that Yi Lingfeng and Du Qing had a keen insight into her age. It was no wonder that the two of them were entangled. But was this naivety really a compliment? Didn't they say that heroes come from the young? It's normal. Chu Qingyan acted cute. Du Qing nodded. The new generation excels the old. I understand. While they were talking, the waiter had already served all the dishes they ordered. Thus, the two of them began to enjoy the hot breakfast. So sweet, so sweet. It's delicious. Du Qing was very satisfied. She squinted her eyes and ate happily with a bean bun in one hand and a sugar-fried chestnut in the other. Chu Qingyan drank the porridge and looked at the person who was tasting the breakfast with a curious expression. She was deep in thought. This Du Qing ate very elegantly. Even though she was holding food in both hands and her eyes were sparkling, it didn't affect her temperament. It was as if something was deeply ingrained in her and wouldn't be affected by one or two actions that were out of line. She was no more than 15 or 16 years old. When she smiled, she looked innocent. But when she looked at people seriously, she faintly exuded a noble aura. Her gestures were also elegant. Chu Qingyan was a little curious about her identity. Could it be that she was a young miss from an official's family who ran away? But she didn't have a servant girl by her side. It didn't make sense. Chu Qingyan asked casually, "Which part of the Jiang kingdom is Lady Dugu from? Why did you come out alone? Aren't you worried that your family won't be able to find you?" These words seemed to poke Du Qing's heart. Her hands suddenly paused and her face slightly stiffened. But it was only for a moment before she returned to normal. She took a bite of the bean bun, like a satisfied cat, and slowly said, "I'm not from Jiang country. My family isn't here." With just these two sentences, he easily changed the topic. Chu Qingyan used the action of drinking the porridge to hide the surprise in her eyes. Don't be fooled by this little girl's innocent appearance. In fact, she was very good at changing her face. But she didn't feel any hostility or threat from her, so she was relieved. After eating, her stomach was full and her body was warm. Before the others came down, Chu Qingyan started to chat with her. "Have you known Yi Lingfeng for a long time?" Girls were all gossipy, and Chu Qingyan was no exception. When talking about Yi Lingfeng, Du Qing was a little indignant and a little shy. "We've known each other for at least 3 months." When talking about her acquaintance with Yi Lingfeng, Du Qing talked endlessly. The first time she met Yi Lingfeng was on the street. He politely struck up a conversation with her on the road and invited her to eat sugar-coated haws. When he heard that she was not from Jiang country, he enthusiastically took her around. At that time, Du Qing had just arrived at the capital of Jiang country and was unfamiliar with the place. When she saw that there was a free handsome man as a tour guide, why not? A few days later, perhaps Yi Lingfeng couldn't stand her too active personality or knew that she was too simple, so he left her alone. Later, she looked for him everywhere and unfortunately, she was targeted by a few bad guys. Yi Lingfeng happened to pass by and saved her. Then she continued to follow him. In the end, it evolved into one running and one chasing. But in Chu Qingyan's ears, she automatically summed it up as a story of a foodie girl being taken away by someone, and then the hero saving the beauty, and the beauty wanting to repay him with her body. Chu Qingyan felt that this Yi Lingfeng wasn't too bad. At least he didn't take advantage of the girl. But after hearing Chu Qingyan's heroic words, Chu Qingyan almost spat out a mouthful of water. I think Yi Lingfeng looks very much like my husband, so I want to abduct him home. Chapter 392. Du Guqing was immersed in her own beautiful fantasy and did not consider the damage her words would cause to the people around her. Cough cough, so she was wrong. The ancient people's thinking was not as conservative as she thought, but rather so avant-garde. Then, if she took a fancy to a pleasing man on the street, she could go up to him and say, "Hey, you look like my next boyfriend. Why don't you come home with me?" If she said that, wouldn't she be frozen to death by the big ice cube? Cough cough, is that so? Chu Qingyan could not help but cough lightly to hide the shock in her heart. That's right. If you like him, then fight for him. My father, cough cough, my family members all say this. No matter how much you like him, if you don't fight for him, he still doesn't belong to you. Du Guqing said matter-of-factly. Chu Qingyan felt that these words were right, but it did not seem appropriate to use them on a playboy. Just as she was about to speak, Du Guqing spoke first. As the saying goes, if a man pursues a woman, there's a mountain between them. If a woman pursues a man, there's a layer of gauze between them. I believe that where there's a will, there's a way. Looking at her clenched fists, eager to try, Chu Qingyan felt that dreams were plentiful, but reality was bony. However, this was her choice, and she could not interfere. She only hoped that Yi Lingfeng would not go overboard and hurt such a brave girl. But for some things, the more you want it to go in the direction you want it to go, the more it will like to go in the opposite direction. The world was unpredictable just like that. Not long after, everyone went downstairs. Chu Qingyan still wanted to say something to her, but when she turned around, she did not see anyone. She saw Du Guqing at the stairs with her hands clasped in front of her, looking virtuous as she said to the people who just came downstairs, "Big brother Lingfeng, did you sleep well last night? I just ate breakfast here. I think the red bean bun and sugar-fried chestnuts are delicious. I recommend you." Yi Lingfeng drank too much last night and was still not in the right state. Suddenly, he heard this ghostly voice and immediately woke up in fright. He turned his head and saw a pair of sparkling eyes, as if they were demonstrating to him. He suddenly wanted to vomit blood. Could it be that his words yesterday were ignored by her? "Why are you still here?" Yi Lingfeng's tone was not very good. He had a bit of a temper when he woke up. No matter if it was his parents or anyone else, he had never given them any face. There was once an unwritten rule in the Yi residence. The young master was easy to talk to at any time, but never provoke him when he had just woken up. Because at that time, he would no longer be a charming young master with an air of immortality, but a demon. Perhaps she was startled by Yi Lingfeng's tone, but before she could answer, he had already walked past her. "So fierce," Du Guqing muttered softly, "but it's flavorful. I like it. When you like someone, no matter good or bad, they are all merits in your eyes." Soon, she came back to life and went to his side to watch him eat breakfast. Yi Lingfeng seemed to be used to her clinginess. But he was still angry about waking up, so he ate and ignored her. Xiao Su was a step later than Yi Lingfeng. When he came downstairs, Chu Qingyan had already ordered his usual food for him to eat. He could enjoy it as soon as he sat down. Father Chu impolitely snatched the steamed bun from his son-in-law's hand. Facing his daughter's speechlessness, he acted like it was natural. Because other people's things are better than mine, so the steamed bun in son-in-law's hand will definitely be more fragrant than mine. Everyone's acceptance of Father Chu's fallacy increased, but Yi Lingfeng looked at this scene with a bit of surprise. With Xiao Su's skills, a mere steamed bun shouldn't have slipped up so easily, right? Unless he didn't care at all. It can't be. This Father Chu was so stupid. Was he worth being treated like this? He remembered that in the past, Feng Yi and him wanting to steal things from Xiao Su's hands was seeking death. This Father Chu was not only alive, he could even properly enjoy his things. It really was strange. Hualing and the others glanced at Yi Lingfeng, who looked like he was struck by lightning. They were also abused like this in the past, so they got used to it. However, there was now another member of the abused army, so it was worth celebrating. Perhaps because of Duguqing, Yi Lingfeng wasn't as enthusiastic towards Qing Yanluo as when they first met. He was probably afraid that Duguqing would say something without thinking and ruin his glorious image. However, it could also be because Yi Lingfeng saw that Qing Yanluo wasn't as enthusiastic and shy as the other girls. Seeing that he was just a passerby, he didn't have the heart to provoke him. After everyone finished eating, they prepared to get on the carriage. Chu Qingyan walked out of the inn and saw two people standing to the side. Duguqing and Yi Lingfeng. Big brother Lingfeng, aren't you going back to the capital? I'm going the same way, how about we go together? Duguqing asked with a smile. Yi Lingfeng felt his temples ache. Go back the same way you came. We're in a hurry, so I'm afraid we can't take care of you. I'm not a rich young miss, so you don't have to worry. I can take care of myself. Duguqing waved her hands. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but smile. This Duguqing was really cute. Couldn't she tell that she was rejecting him in a disguised way? However, her reply was good because she saw Yi Lingfeng's defeated expression. Everything had its vanquisher. Miss Dugu, do you want this young master to tell you directly that I can't bring you along? It's better to leave some leeway for us to meet again in the future. Yi Lingfeng felt that if he brought her along, he wouldn't have any peaceful days along the way. Therefore, he couldn't care less about his usual tender and protective nature. This Duguqing was the most difficult woman he had ever met in his life. She was second to none. But I lost my maidservant, and my traveling expenses were stolen. I am alone and have no relatives. Are you really willing to leave me in such a terrible place? Tears quickly filled her eyes. A beauty full of tears, so delicate and pitiful that I couldn't help but feel pity for her. When Yi Lingfeng heard this, he sighed. Forget it, it's not like we can't go together, but you have to promise to stay at least 3 steps away from me. Duguqing immediately nodded with tears in her eyes, looking very sincere. Yi Lingfeng then went to arrange a carriage for her. When Duguqing walked in front of Chu Qingyan, she was stopped by her. Did you lose all your things? I have some money here, you can keep it with you first. Chu Qingyan was about to let Xining take out her purse. Who knew that Duguqing would immediately stop her? She looked around and then whispered in Chu Qingyan's ear, my family's servant girl was thrown away by me. I was the one who threw away the traveling expenses. Chu Qingyan looked at her in shock. Duguqing straightened her body and smiled slyly. If I didn't do that, how would I be able to travel with you today? This is called, you can't catch the wolf without risking the child. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she couldn't help but give her a thumbs up. But this saying, can't catch the wolf, seemed to be quite apartment. Yi Lingfeng looked like a big bad wolf. She had a premonition that this Yi Lingfeng would fall in the hands of this little fox in rabbit skin. She was really looking forward to it. Chapter 393. To be honest, Duguqing looked simple, but Chu Qingyan had a feeling that this little girl was not very simple. However, it was good that Yi Lingfeng was troubled by this problem. At least, he would be more careful not to attract bees and butterflies during the journey. Yan Luo and Ethereal had been in a state of treating each other as heir. Chu Qingyan concluded that they were in a cold war. Father and mother were very curious about everything in the Jiang country. They talked and laughed, and from time to time showed their affection in the carriage. At the beginning, Duguqing was still playing her part. Yi Lingfeng relaxed, but soon she began to take action. Duguqing once told Chu Qingyan that this was called loosening the reins only to grasp them better. Let him relax his vigilance, and then launch an attack. Chu Qingyan thought that this plan was very good, but it seemed that it would not work. Duguqing, who had climbed into Yi Lingfeng's carriage many times to get closer to him, was thrown off by him. The journey was difficult, but because of these small episodes, it became less boring. On this day, the group stopped to rest halfway. Chu Qingyan did not want to go out because it was too windy outside, so she pulled Xiao Su to play chess in the carriage. Xining boiled a pot of water and came to pour tea for them. Master, do you know what happened today? Xining asked excitedly while pouring tea. As soon as she heard the word again, it meant that something happened between Duguqing and Yi Lingfeng. Chu Qingyan was interested. Holding a chess piece, she smiled and said, "Don't keep me in suspense, tell me quickly." Xining put down the teapot and said impatiently, "When we set off this morning, Miss Duga bought some pastries in the market for young Master E. But she did not know that young Master E was allergic to mango. Those pastries were mixed with mango powder. I heard that young Master E accidentally ate it and became allergic. Now Ethereal is treating him." Pfft, wasn't this too dramatic? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but smile and shake her head. Dugu Qing was probably on the verge of tears. After Xining retreated, Chu Qingyan placed a chess piece, tilted her head and asked, "Big Ice Cube, is young Master E always so, passionate to women outside?" Chu Qingyan originally wanted to use amorous remarks, but after thinking about it, this person was his good friend after all. It was better for her to save some face. When she paused, Xiao Su knew what she wanted to say. After he placed a piece, he said calmly, "He's carefree and bold, but he knows his limits. In short, his IQ isn't high, but his EQ isn't low." Chu Qingyan carefully pondered over his words and felt that Yi Lingfeng had been belittled by his good friend. One was unapproachable, while the other was passionate. It was hard to imagine that these two people with completely different personalities could become friends. It was really amazing. However, at this moment, Chu Qingyan was attracted by the hands of the person in front of her. She was holding a white piece, while he was holding a black piece because she disliked the color black. But when the round black jewel was sandwiched between his slender middle finger and ring finger, it appeared so dark and cute. Perhaps it was because his hands were too beautiful. They were white, with distinct joints, and light pink fingernails. They were like cherry blossoms falling on the fine white jade. They were so beautiful that they were not a pair of hands, but a work of art. But this pair of hands did not appear gentle, but instead gave people a kind of simple elegance. For example, at this moment he was leisurely playing with the black piece between his fingers. Relying on the nimbleness of his fingers, the black piece appeared between his index finger and middle finger, and then between his ring finger and little finger. Her gaze couldn't help but follow those fingers up, sweeping over the back of the hand with blue veins, the wrist that was like a crescent moon, and then the sleeve that was tied around his wrist, completely covering the beautiful scene between his clothes. She didn't know why, but she felt a kind of elegant, holy, and ascetic aura. Thinking of this, she already didn't dare to look up. After waiting for a long time for her to place a piece, Xiao Su leaned against the wall of the carriage, looking at her with a leisurely expression. "You still want to regret your piece?" His voice was like jade colliding, deep and magnetic. Chu Qingyan was slightly startled and couldn't help but look up at him. Just sitting there casually, his expression was indifferent, but it couldn't hide the elegance of his body, as well as the light in his eyes. Chu Qingyan suddenly thought of these words: elegant, carefree, and elegant. If it was before, these words would not be related to him at all. But after leaving the Sichuan, he was no longer so dull and his eyebrows were no longer tightly knit. If he used to look like a 30-year-old man, he now looked like a 20-year-old man with the demeanor that a 20-year-old man should have. "Even if you see a flower on my face, I won't let you regret your piece." The deep and magnetic voice sounded again. Chu Qingyan quickly averted her gaze. How could she continue to stare at him like this? She secretly despised herself in her heart. Even if there was a beauty in front of her, she still had to sit still. "Who said I'm regretting my piece? I'll place it now." Chu Qingyan, who was rushing to get a piece, did not notice that she had just been seriously teased by the big ice block. When Chu Qingyan calmed her emotions and prepared to place a piece, she found that she had already lost the city gate. The white piece had suffered a crushing defeat. No wonder the big ice block had asked her if she was regretting her piece. She had no choice but to regret it now. Therefore, the people not far from the carriage heard the words coming from inside. "Give me a 5-step advantage." "Not a single step. Give me a 4-step advantage." 3 steps. "Good. Deal." Then, after a while, there was another conversation from inside. "If I had known, I would have played again. 3 steps can't bring the dead back to life. Even if I gave you a 10-step advantage, You still have no power to resist. How can I be as good at chess as you? She humbly asked for advice. Some things are innate. You can't change it. It's not as good as IQ. With his poisonous tongue, Qingyan lost. But this can be made up for later. What the hell, another military book? I won't read it. The people outside could vaguely imagine the scene of their young Wang Fei being bullied by their masters again. It was simply too vivid. Du Guqing inevitably heard the conversation between Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan outside. She was envious. If her family's Yi Feng could also treat her like this, then she would be satisfied. After brewing the medicine, Du Guqing immediately brought it in. This was her first time brewing medicine. It could be said that it hurt her brain. She knew how to play the zither, go, calligraphy, and painting, but she didn't know how to serve people. Yi Lingfeng, who was red all over because of his allergy, didn't notice who handed him the medicine. He only wanted the allergy to disappear quickly so that it wouldn't affect his image as an elegant young master. Therefore, after receiving it, he put it in his mouth without looking. Du Guqing saw his actions and her heart was filled with anticipation. She had just brewed this medicine and hadn't tasted it yet. She didn't know if it would have a soft taste. Unfortunately, reality was cruel. Yi Lingfeng immediately spat out without caring about his image. Who could explain why this medicine was filled with dregs? When he saw that the person standing in front of him was Du Guqing, he felt like kneeling down. Damn it. Chapter 394. During dinner, they heard that Yi Lingfeng's illness had worsened. Not only was he allergic, but he also caught a cold. Chu Qingyan said worriedly to the person beside her, "Big ice cube, is it because we were in such a hurry that young Master Yi's body couldn't take it?" Xiao Su didn't stop picking up food. "It has nothing to do with being tired. Just focus on eating and ignore him." Chu Qingyan ate the mouthful of white rice. Big Ice Cube was still as cold as ever. However, she thought about it in her heart. Yi Lingfeng was sick, and that gave Du Guqing a chance to take care of him and serve him. Chu Qingyan felt that she was being evil, but she believed that Du Guqing, who was even more evil, would not let go of such a good opportunity. But when she was about to go out for a walk after dinner, she heard Xining's report. It turned out that Yi Lingfeng was not sick because of fatigue, but because of anger. And it was all thanks to the domineering Du Guqing. Du Guqing, who had never served anyone before, did not know how to boil medicine. The first time, she boiled the medicine into dregs. The second time, one of the herbs was missing. She did not know the importance of the herb, which made the allergy worse. Then she felt sorry and took out Yi Lingfeng's clothes to wash. Then Yi Lingfeng was miserable. In ancient times, there were no washing machines or dehumidifiers. How could winter clothes dry easily? So when he finished bathing and wanted to change his clothes, he found that the small box was empty except for a note saying, "I was wrong, I atone for my sins, I will wash your clothes clean." Oh my God, are you sent by heaven to punish me? Yi Lingfeng covered his eyes. He had never seen such an idiotic woman. So young Master Yi, who had no clothes to wear, caught a cold wrapped in the quilt. At that time, Ethereal saw his sick appearance and sighed, "Young Master Yi, when I saw you a few years ago, you were strong and strong. Why is your body so weak now?" Could it be that his body was really hollowed out by beauty? Yi Lingfeng read the meaning in Ethereal's eyes and closed his eyes immediately. "Du Guqing, when we reach the capital, I will send you away." He was a man of his word. After Chu Qingyan finished listening to the story, she began to piece it together in her mind. It was a youthful idol drama about a silly girl chasing after an unlucky guy. Because they were about to reach the capital of the Jiang Kingdom, they could feel that the closer they were to the capital, the more solemn the towns were. The patrolling soldiers at the checkpoints were also more formal. As the heart of the country, it should be more protected. Therefore, they slowed down their pace, worried that they would attract attention. On this day, they stopped in a town closest to the imperial capital. It had to be said that this Yi Lingfeng was truly a rich second generation. Because almost every place they stayed was a courtyard of Yi Lingfeng's family, and this time was no exception. Yi Lingfeng and Big Ice Cube went to the study to discuss something while Chu Qingyan strolled alone in the yard. Although the weather in Jiang country was so cold that it made people shiver, she had been practicing martial arts diligently recently. Her body was much more resistant to the cold than before. Chu Qingyan stood in the yard for a while, then turned around and saw Dugu Qing. She greeted, "Sister Dugu, where are you going?" Hearing someone call her, Dugu Qing stopped in her tracks. She carefully protected the plate in her hands and turned sideways. Seeing that it was Chu Qingyan, her eyes curved into crescents. "So it's little Qingyan. What are you doing here?" "Just taking a walk." Chu Qingyan walked over and saw the plate that she treated like a treasure. She couldn't help but be curious. "What are you holding in your hands?" Dugu Qing followed her gaze and looked at the plate in her hands. Chu Qingyan didn't know if she had seen wrongly, but she actually saw a trace of shyness flash across Dugu Qing's face. "These are the pastries I made for Big Brother Lingfeng. I heard that he is in the study now, so I took them to make afternoon tea for him." Dugu Qing held the plate and smiled sweetly. Chu Qingyan smiled. Dugu Qing was indeed a little girl in love. The word, sweet, was overflowing in her words. But when she saw Dugu Qing's figure disappear in the corridor, Xining walked to her side. She looked a little embarrassed. She raised her eyebrows in surprise. "You went to put out the fire? How did you end up in such a sorry state?" Xining's face was mournful. "Mistress, this servant just came back from the kitchen. Miss Dugu had just burned down the kitchen. This servant also helped everyone put out the fire." Chu Qingyan didn't think that she would hit the nail on the head. She blinked and admired in her heart. This Dugu Qing was indeed powerful, very powerful. "Go change your clothes. Also, call Jean Xin over. I have something to ask him." Chu Qingyan patted Xining's shoulder and let her go back. Xining complied. Looking at her body covered in dust, she wanted to cry but had no tears. She only wanted to make a bowl of lotus seed soup for her mistress. Why was she so unlucky? Chu Qingyan watched Xining leave with a pensive look in her eyes. She had to quickly improve her martial arts. Perhaps it would be useful in Jiang country. Her intuition had always been very accurate. "Old brother, my mother is urging me to give birth to a big fat son for her again." Yi Lingfeng's face was very dejected. He should have been a handsome young man like Panin, but now his face was swollen with small pink bumps because of allergies. His very handsome appearance had been ruined. If it was in the past, he would definitely attract the attention of women. Unfortunately, with his current appearance and the 9-foot-tall man sitting in front of him, Xiao Su, he didn't even notice his grievances. It's normal for Auntie to have such considerations. "You're already 18. Xiao Su casually replied. Not only did his good friend not comfort him, he even hit him when he was down. Yi Lingfeng put away his emotions and wanted to open his folding fan. However, when he touched his waist, it was empty. He then remembered Ethereal's warning that he shouldn't be exposed to wind these few days. Otherwise, it would be detrimental to his condition. He couldn't help but sigh. "So what if I'm 18? Isn't it better to be free and unfettered like this?" "It's time for you to restrain yourself," Xiao Su suggested. He had heard the little fellow's evaluation of Yi Lingfeng before. Affectionate people were actually heartless, heartless people were actually affectionate, and fickle people were truly fickle in love. He thought that Yi Lingfeng wasn't hopeless. You think you're so great because you have a fiancé?" Yi Lingfeng immediately glared at the person in front of him. "Didn't you and Feng Yi ignore me in the past? Also, you said that women were boring and couldn't compare to your military books and weapons. Why have you changed your mind now? Today is different from the past. If you want to complain about these things today, I think you should go back first." Xiao Su stood up and smoothed out the wrinkles on his clothes. Then, ignoring the calls of the people behind him, he calmly walked out. Yi Lingfeng clenched his fists and cursed in his heart. "Back then, you were as indifferent as water and Feng Yi didn't touch women. I played with flowers. I didn't expect that after so many years, you would change your mind. Luckily, I had Feng Yi to accompany me. You think you're so great because you have a fiancé?" After cursing in his heart, Yi Lingfeng suddenly smiled slyly. "Little fellow, I have a way to make things difficult for you. Just as Yi Lingfeng was gleefully scheming, a curse came to hasten his death. Knock knock, is Big Brother Lingfeng here? Yi Lingfeng suddenly wanted to play dead. Chapter 395. Big Brother Lingfeng? Dugu Qing called a few times outside the door, but did not hear a response. She wondered if something had happened to him. Her heart panicked and she kicked the study door. At this time, Yi Lingfeng did not want to pay attention to it, but thinking that it would be ungentlemanly, he got up and prepared to open the door. Thus, Dugu Qing's kick was unlucky, but also very coincidental. Yi Lingfeng did not know that waiting for him was a flying kick. He was unguarded, and his body came into close contact with the ground. He held his waist, fiercely looking at the girl who did not know what to do. One allergy, one typhoid, one waist injury. Did he commit a sin in his previous life, or did he have 8 lifetimes of bad luck to meet her disaster? I was wrong. Dugu Qing quickly helped him up. She was about to cry. How could she know that Big Brother Lingfeng would be standing behind the door? Her kick was not light. Yi Lingfeng wanted to avoid her hand and stand up himself, but found that his injury was more serious than he thought. When he sat on the chair, his face was dark. Why are you looking for me? At this time, there was no longer any gentlemanly demeanor. He got injured for nothing. Let that demeanor go to hell. Dugu Qing knew that she was in the wrong. She twisted her fingers and suddenly remembered her pastries. She immediately put the plate in front of him and said flatteringly, Big Brother Lingfeng, I'm here to give you pastries. I consulted the pastry chef in the manor and finished it after an entire afternoon. Quickly try it. Yi Lingfeng impatiently waved his hand. At this time, his waist was hurting so much that he wanted to kill someone. His tone was not any better. You don't have to do these things anymore. Just let the servants do it. Dugu Qing did not hear the displeasure in his voice, but continued with a smile. I'm very happy to be able to do something for you. Saying this, she opened the lid. Yi Lingfeng felt very helpless. This person did not understand. Some things should be stopped at a certain point, just like him and those girls before. But Yi Lingfeng forgot that those girls he met before were also shrewd. Even if they were not experts in the field of love, they were still experienced in it. Both sides just took what they needed. But the one in front of him was the first girl he provoked who did not know the ways of the world. She did not want anything, just to stay by his side. Unlike those girls in the past who wanted his money and status. Why did it become like this? I clearly cut them into pieces. Dugu Qing wanted to take out a piece and pass it to him, but when she saw the clumps of sticky rice cakes on the plate, she didn't know where to start. Didn't you check before you came? The corners of Yi Lingfeng's eyes twitched. It was his first time seeing such an ugly pastry. It was simply unbearable to look at. I brought it over as soon as it was done. I wanted you to be the first to see it. No matter how thick-skinned she was, she still felt how shameful it was to display such terrible culinary skills in front of her sweetheart. Yi Lingfeng felt that he was already hopeless. He wanted to take the opportunity to mock her a few more times to make her give up, but for some reason, his gaze fell on her hand that was tightly holding the plate. He remembered that 3 months ago, that pair of fair and clean little hands were very cute and chubby. Now, they were covered with all kinds of scratches and a few of her fingers were swollen like carrots. The displeasure in his heart disappeared in an instant and was replaced by a thick and complicated feeling and helplessness. There's a blue medicine bottle in the 3rd compartment. Bring it over. Yi Lingfeng ordered her. Dugu Qing still hadn't recovered from her shame when she heard his command. She subconsciously walked over. When the medicine bottle was brought back, she reacted. Do you want to apply medicine? She thought back to how he bumped into it not lightly. Yi Lingfeng took the bottle from her hand and said, Stretch out your hand. Dugu Qing was a little stunned. But seeing him so serious, she subconsciously stretched out her hand. Her sleeves were a little long. Yi Lingfeng held her hand and rolled up her sleeves. Without rolling them up, he didn't know that there were a few long scratches on the back of her hand. On her fair skin, it was especially conspicuous. He was used to seeing women slender, smooth, and gentle beauty. But this was the first time he held a pair of hands that could be said to be pig-trotters and carefully observed them. He felt a little funny, but also a little sympathetic. When his fingers rested on her wrist, Duguqing's fingers trembled. First, it was because of the pain. Second, it was because she had exposed her ugly side in front of her sweetheart. She wanted to withdraw her hand, but he held it firmly. Fortunately, he had avoided those wounds. Otherwise, it would have been one disaster after another for her. She was about to open her mouth to ask him to let go when she heard him ask, "Why are there so many wounds?" After asking, he took out a sweat towel and carefully wiped the ashes on her fingers. He didn't raise his head to look at her. Duguqing wasn't that nervous. She said indifferently, "Because I'm a little stupid and haven't come into contact with decocting medicine, washing clothes, or making pastries. So, I hurt myself. But I was going to go to Miss Cheng's place today to apply some ointment. You don't have to worry." Those scratches, needless to say, were caused by her helping him decocting medicine last time and making pastries this time. The frostbite should have been caused by her foolishly carrying those clothes to wash. He had seen so many women. Which one of them didn't treat their hands and face like treasures? They would be extremely worried about the slightest scar. But she didn't care at all. Yiling Feng didn't know if he should say that she was careless or that she was magnanimous. But he didn't ask her to do these things. But she did suffer these wounds for him. Yiling Feng felt a little complicated in his heart. He didn't say anything else. He poured out the ointment and carefully helped her apply it. Actually, which woman didn't want to be beautiful? Duguqing also cared a lot about her hands and her skin. In the past, when she was in the palace, even the slightest bump would make Imperial Mother very worried. Not to mention now. She could imagine that when Imperial Mother saw her hands, she would faint from fright. But what was done was done. She had also been injured. It would be unreasonable to be sad. But when the cold ointment was applied to her slightly itchy wounds, she suddenly felt that these wounds really came at the right time. Right now, he was sitting while she was standing. As long as she lowered her head, she could see his slightly closed slender eyelashes and that high nose. She also did the same. A bandit gentleman liked to compare notes. These 8 words were simply tailor-made for him. "Have you seen enough?" She subconsciously replied, "Not yet." Once the words came out, she closed her mouth. How did a person with his head lowered know that she was looking at him? Did he have eyes on the top of his head? Yiling Feng ignored her words. He closed the bottle and instructed, "Don't let it touch water for the next 2 or 3 days." "How can it not touch water? I still want to cook for you," Duguqing said a little anxiously. "There's no need to cook." Yiling Feng looked at the sticky rice cakes and said through gritted teeth. He had already been tormented enough in this period of time. He didn't want his organs to be injured again. "Then what else can I do?" she said in a small voice. "There is," he said in a low voice. "What?" She jumped for joy. "Help me call Ethereal over." His waist was hurting more and more. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.